Hello. Sir, is it audible now, sir? Yeah, perfect, sir. Perfect, sir. Thank you, sir. Yeah, we will have a formal inauguration, sir. Just one moment, sir. Yes. A very good morning, all. We welcome you all for the third day of the Indian Economic Association Annual Conference, 108th Annual Conference of the Indian Economic Association, organized by Wales University, Chennai. On a day three, we are starting with a very, very important lecture. We will also say this is something, a blessings for all the audience to see and witness Professor Dr. Vedagiri Shanmugasundaram Centenary Celebration Lecture. This lecture will be delivered by Sri Montek Singh Ahluwalia, former Deputy Chairman, Planning Commission, Government of India, former Chief Economist, World Bank. This session will be chaired by Dr. G. Viswanathan, Patron, Indian Economic Association, Chancellor, Vellore Institute of Technology. We wholeheartedly welcome Professor Sri Montek Singh Ahluwalia, sir, for accepting our invitation and being with us to deliver Professor Dr. Vedagiri Shanmugasundaram Centenary Celebration Lecture. We all know the contributions of Sri Montek Singh Ahluwalia ji, one of the India's most distinguished economists and a policy leader. One of the India's eminent economists who has guided Indian economy and what we are because of the contributions laid by Sri Montek Singh Ahluwalia ji. A Rhodes Scholar from Oxford, he began his career at the World Bank before serving in key positions in the Government of India, including Finance Secretary and Commerce Secretary. As a Deputy Chairman of the Planning Commission of India, he has guided the nation's 5-year plan during a transformative decade of growth and reforms. His contributions to public policy have been recognized with Padma Vibhushan. His contribution has been recognized by the Government of India and honored him with the Padma Vibhushan, one of the India's highest civilian honors. Today, he continues to inspire a global thought leader, academic, and a mentor, shaping various lectures on sustainable and inclusive development. Please join me in welcoming Sri Montek Singh Ahluwalia ji for delivering this Professor Dr. Vedagiri Shanmugasundaram's Centenary Lecture. I now request the Chairman, Dr. G. Viswanathan sir, to please share few words, followed by this. Okay. Sir. Sir, now we, on behalf of all the audience, organizing committee, chairperson, and Professor Shanmugasundaram, Yashoda Madam, Dr. A.D.N. Vajpayee, sir, with all this, we are requesting you to please start delivering this lecture, Professor Dr. Vedagiri Shanmugasundaram Centenary Lecture Series. Sir, please.
In much better weather than I am experiencing, where Delhi still is shrouded with a kind of fog. I'm very honored at being invited to deliver this lecture at the annual meetings of the Indian Economic Association. I wish I could have done that in person, but unfortunately, my travel schedule makes that difficult, so I have to do this remotely. But it's a pleasure to be able to do this, and I hope I can share with you some broad concerns. You know, this lecture is not a set piece, posing certain questions and providing answers. I want to use this lecture in order to introduce to all of you, I mean, you're all aware of it, but I just want to highlight that the world, and certainly the economics profession, is going through a moment of churn. A lot of what used to be regarded as universally accepted values and universally accepted rules for policy making are being challenged. That creates a fair amount of uncertainty. It also causes a lot of disruption. But what we have to look at is what do they signal for economic policy. So I want to go over some of the main reasons why it is challenging to be an economist today. And I mean, all of you, particularly the younger ones, would be well advised to give it some thought. That Professionally, what are the challenges that you face in analyzing the Indian economy? So let me talk of four broad areas where there's lots of rethinking taking place. The first really is in the manner in which trade and investment rules should be formulated across countries. That's one. Second is all that may be happening, but it's happening in a world of rapidly changing technology. I mean, technology is changing today much more rapidly than it did earlier. And so that's a second important difference. I can see the change in technology in the form of a drone which is going across the room. That didn't used to happen in earlier days in an Indian Economic Association meeting. The third big change is climate change. Again, this is an area where it looked as if the world was slowly coming to some kind of an agreement, and that seems to have frayed. And we are today in a situation where what was thought to be an agreed global situation has kind of come unstuck. And the fourth important area that we need to think about is energy, which is related to climate change, and it poses very big challenges for India. And finally, there is the issue of fiscal balance. You know, whatever we, however we address the questions that I posed earlier, I think one thing remains valid, that for a relatively small part of the world, I mean, we are a large economy in terms of numbers of people. We're not a very large economy yet in terms of our economic size. I mean, we may soon become the third largest economy if you don't count Europe as one, but still it'll be very far below the for number one and number two. I mean, a global share of output of about 3%. For such an economy, I think it has to be accepted that if we are going to remain interconnected with the rest of the world, and if we are going to count on capital inflows, then I think we have to have an overall fiscal balance which is judged to be healthy. And I think one of the questions really is that depending on how we address some of these other challenges we are talking about, we have to keep in mind what does that do to our fiscal balance. Because if the fiscal balance becomes unhealthy, we will not be able to sustain the kind of capital inflows, perhaps, that we can very reasonably hope for, and which would obviously help in financing higher levels of investment. So, with that introduction, let me talk about the specific things. You know, the first is, of course, that trade patterns and attitudes towards the rules of trade were formulated in the post war years, really, when, at least for the Western world, I mean, there was a conflict between the Cold War, between the Western world and the communist world at that time, headed by Russia. But the United States was far and above anybody else in the Western world in terms of its dominance. And I think it acted like a benign hegemon. I mean, it was indisputably the hegemon, but most people thought it was acting like a benign hegemon, helping Europe to recover from the damages of the Second World War, and also later helping developing countries uh, with some capital inflows to integrate with the world. Although the US's policies towards developing countries were not always necessarily helpful, and there are many different perspectives that you can give to that. But broadly, I think they were encouraging a flow of investment towards developing countries. I think this changed very dramatically in the last 10 years, and that change has been magnified by uh, the perceptions of policy by the US Trump administration, Trump 2.0. I don't think the change has entirely occurred during this administration, but because the beginnings of change were being felt even earlier. But I think in the Trump administration 2.0, this change is very marked. And I think it's a change that is marked by geopolitical fragmentation. Basically, the earlier assumption of the United States was that the world would remain more and more integrated. The collapse of the Soviet Union before that, the Soviet Union in 1991, led to the belief that the whole world was now integrating and that the US will continue as a sort of hegemon. In fact, the India's 1991 reforms were formulated exactly at that time, when the world was very fairly open and we were all being encouraged to join into a healthy process of international trade. We were late in doing reforms. Others had been doing it much earlier, and we should have been also, but we were late in doing it. However, we did it. And by and large, that period has led to a greater dynamism in the Indian economy. The economy is much stronger today than it was in 1991. And this is the result of the cumulative effort of different governments since then. I mean, the Narasimha Rao Manmohan Singh reforms introduced in 91 did very well. They were criticized at the time, with lots of people saying we shouldn't open up, it's damaging, etc. But I think that point of view did not survive. The next government that was there was the United Front. It was a coalition that included the Communist Party. They also, each government distinguished itself a little bit from the previous one. I mean, that is normal in a democracy. But if you were to ask the question, did they introduce a big reversal of policy? The answer is they didn't. They essentially continued the process of gradual reforms that were begun in 1991. And I mean, today, at least before the current problems in the world, the Indian economy was seen as a relatively well-performing emerging market economy, except for China. China grew very rapidly, as you know, in the last 10 years, and then has slowed down in the last three. We grew much less fast than China, but our growth rate improved. Right now, depending on which, if you take a medium-term view, not the last quarter, probably the Indian economy is growing somewhere between 6.5% and 7%, which is faster than any other major emerging market economies. It's also faster than China at the moment. But that's because China has reached a much higher level of development than we have. I mean, the Chinese per capita GDP is now about 4.5 times that of India. So you expect the economy to slow down at that point. We are much below that, so technically we should be able to grow rapidly, assuming we have the right policies. What those right policies are, however, has been affected or could be affected by the changes that I'm talking about. And one of those changes is geopolitical fragmentation. Now, you know, I won't go into the politics. It's quite a fascinating story because all of a sudden the world seems to have innumerable points of tension. There is the US concern that China has become the second largest economy in the world, and in technological terms, very close to the US in terms of being able to give leadership. There is a sudden change in the European situation, where the European countries remain very convinced that Russia is a threat to them, though the Americans don't seem to be that worried about Russia. In fact, want to cement a good relationship with Russia and are trying to negotiate a peace in Ukraine, which is more on Russian terms than on European terms. But the Americans are really saying, look, the Europeans better pay for their own defense, which they haven't been doing. So there's a bit of tension there. And of course, you have an unresolved problem in the Middle East, in the Gaza situation, where higher degree of uncertainty. Now, in this situation, one approach, I mean, this is what people call multipolarity. There's not one pole, there are several poles. So you could think of the Americans being one pole, you could think of China being another very important pole, you could think of Europe being an important pole. They're a little bit lost at the moment. We are not big enough to be a pole, but we have to decide what should we do. And there, the formula which you very often hear is that multipolarity means multi-alignment. Now, that makes a lot of sense in this. All that it says is we are strategically autonomous. So if the world is broken up into different poles, we must align with each pole in terms of our own best interests. That would be fine if the other major poles didn't care what your alignments were. But if the other major poles are concerned about certain alignments, then you are not able to align vis-a-vis one pole independent of how you align vis-a-vis other pole. And that is really the formula. Multipolarity means multi-alignment. Looks as if it's a simple process. It's not. And you can see that in what's going on right now, with the United States taking the view that it can weaponize trade policy. Under the old WTO agreed rules, whatever trade policy you had was subject to WTO rules, but within the WTO rules, you couldn't differentiate across countries. You could do it in a free trade area, but short of a free trade area, if your global tariff limit, upper limit was X, you couldn't say, well, I like this country and therefore I'm going to give them zero tariff, and I don't like this country and therefore I'm going to give them high tariffs. That is really what the US now seems to be doing, which undercuts one of the most fundamental assumptions which has underlied global trade, and that is the most favored nation treatment. That is, you cannot give a favored nation treatment to any member of the WTO unless you give the same treatment to everybody else. And what that means is whatever tariff you have, subject to what you've agreed to, you must have the same tariff for everybody. That is now being quite explicitly challenged by the United States, and it's not just a theoretical challenge, they're doing it in practice. So how do we react to this? This is an important issue. I'll be quite brief in stating this, but it's quite a complex problem. The one reaction to this approach would be that, well, trade has just become not a very reliable form of global exchange, so we must become much more self-reliant, okay? The other approach would be, and I don't actually agree with that view, let me say, there's nothing wrong with building up our own strength. I mean, we have certain competitive advantages, and nobody can seriously think that his approach to trade would be that we don't build up any strength anywhere, because you can't rely on imports all the time. I mean, there's a balance of payments issue that you can only rely on imports if you can do enough exports to support those imports. So in a world in which there are tariff fragmentation, how are you going to get the exports you need in order to finance the imports you need becomes an important question. And I think related to that issue is that, in certain areas, even if you feel that you'd ideally like to import, but you feel that the import makes you vulnerable, then you might say, well, look, I don't want to depend that much on that particular import. That's certainly what the US is doing. And, in our case, for example, the main source, which there is concern about vulnerability, is China. And we have become highly dependent on China in certain areas. In some areas, the whole world is dependent on China, which is the rare earth minerals and so on. In other areas, it's, for example, our dependence on China for what you might call active pharmaceutical ingredients which are a critical input into pharmaceuticals. And we have a very strong position in export of pharmaceutical products and formulations, but we don't have an adequate domestic supply base. It makes a lot of sense to say that, look, we need to develop that. And I think the other thing is that, when you're highly dependent on one source, you have an interest in developing other global sources. So you need to diversify away from the source to which you're highly dependent, but that diversification can be to other countries. It doesn't have to be only to yourself. So there's a fine line to be drawn between when do you get to I must produce everything myself, which is really what was done in the 1970s and 60s. Going backward integration, producing everything internally, and relying a lot more on trade based on comparative advantage, but modifying that by saying that you don't want to be too dependent on any one country. And linked to that is security. I mean, if your relationship with China are not ideal from a security point of view, and they are not, then you don't want to be dependent, let's say, on Chinese chips, which go into sensitive areas of infrastructure. I mean, whether it's military or, for example, all network-related infrastructure. I mean, chips that control networks and data flow in networks, financial, electricity management, transport, railways, etc. So I think there are the usual argument that trade is done by comparative advantage is being modified in many different ways. And we have to take that into account. But what should be our policy? My feeling, and this is something I throw before you without necessarily having done a lot of research on it, but it's something all the researchers present need to think about. My feeling is that the system is being challenged principally by the United States, which feels that its preeminent position in the world has now come under threat from China. China's performance in this period has been outstanding. And if you look at any graph of export shares of the world, after about 2000, China's export share shoots up. Europe's export share goes down. India's export share rises, but very, very gently. And the US export share slightly declined, but more or less stable. So actually the Europeans have a lot of reason to be concerned that they have lost a lot of export share. The Americans don't have that reason because they have not lost that much export share. But they are finding themselves challenged by the rise of China. So they're redoing their policies in order to be able to deal with what could be a competitor. And this is further encouraged by the fact that the Chinese themselves, in their official policy statements, say that it is our objective to challenge American leadership. We challenge American leadership in trade. We challenge American leadership in military terms. We challenge it in technological terms, etc. And also we challenge it in terms of the kind of social system that the world should move towards. I mean, in other words, they're saying that the belief that liberal democracy with a bit of social welfare is a well-functioning system, they obviously don't believe in it. So that's the environment. What should we do? One extreme reaction would be that we say that the world of free trade or relatively free trade is over and we must all become dependent on our own production as much as possible. I think this would be a mistake because whereas a lot of people think we are a large market, the fact is we are not a large market. Our GDP is about, as I said, just under 3% of the world, and our trade share is also something like that. And in no market are we a dominant market in global terms. If the idea is that India should produce at scale and globally competitive scale, then the idea of shutting out everybody else, both from investment and other things, and doing it all internally, we're not large enough to do that. So my feeling is that we need to remain open to the rest of the world, dealing with China in a special kind of way because of our particular security differences. But I'm not suggesting that we should not deal with China. We need, I mean, they're such a huge presence in the world that it just doesn't make sense for India not to deal with China. But we have to deal with them knowing that they may end up controlling certain items that we don't want outside control of. So we take care of that problem. As far as the rest of the world, East Asia, Japan, Korea, Europe, these are countries that are still remaining quite open in terms of trade. So my preferred way of handling this is to A, recognize that the United States is going through an exceptional period. I personally do not think that what the US is doing is best for itself. But of course, the US is a sovereign country and it's their political system that has to determine it. But my feeling is that the present, to my mind, slightly irrational approach of the US is going to get modified. And that it is not going to be the permanent stand of the United States over a long period of time. So we should deal with the United States as an exception. And I think we're doing the right thing by trying to negotiate a free trade deal with the US. And we're not trying to retaliate because, quite frankly, unlike China, we don't have the power to retaliate. So it makes sense for us to say to the US, look, let's try to do a free trade deal. I don't know what is happening there. We kept hearing that it's about to happen. Maybe it will. And maybe they will need some special treatment in certain areas. The negotiations are underway. I can only say I wish them success. But in every other area, I think we ought to enter into free trade agreements with Europe. We're negotiating one with Europe. Everybody said that it would be done by the end of this year. I sincerely hope so. That's the right thing to do. I think we need to think about East Asia also. Asia is the most dynamic part of the world, and of course is led by China growth. If we have reservations about giving free trade access to China, which I think a lot of our industry does, we should at least enter free trade agreements with the rest of Asia. And the logical thing there is the CPTPP, which is helmed by Japan. It earlier had the United States, now Japan, South Korea, a few Southeast Asian countries. And I think both Britain and the EU, Britain has already joined the CPTPP, and the EU is also thinking of joining. So I feel that we should apply for the CPTPP. And I think there the critical question is, entry will not be determined by the level of tariffs. And I think this is the critical thing because in our trade negotiations, we have traditionally strongly opposed bringing into the trade negotiations things that we don't feel belong in the realm of trade policy. I mean, these include conditions relating to investment, conditions relating to the facilitation of trade, etc., etc. I think our approach is old-fashioned, and I think the world has moved away from the belief that trade is equal to tariffs. Now they believe that trade is equal to somewhat deeper integration. We may not agree with everything that they want to push, but I think we have to enter that area in a sensible kind of way, recognizing that we need to open up in these areas much more than we have done. It will put pressure on our domestic policies, but that, after all, is the whole idea. And I mean, I think it would be a good thing if we were to do. So this is my first point, that facing a world in which the US has certainly erected a lot of highly discriminatory trade walls around themselves, I think the other countries have not. Therefore, in my view, we should try to negotiate with the US a free trade agreement and get on with it as fast as we can. But for the rest of the world, we should recognize that they still welcome free trade, and we should join those trade agreements as early as possible. You know, we are saying that we have had a lot of success in things like New Zealand and EFTA. These are very small countries. Uh, I think the UK is an important country, and that's an important achievement. Uh, the next target has to be the European Union. I think talks on that are very far advanced. That's the right thing to do. We are not taking any initiative vis-a-vis East Asia. And it seems to me that if you look at which parts of the world are going to grow rapidly, it's East Asia. And I think we should be willing to join there. Membership to the CPTPP is open. And I think the CPTPP has now said they're going to consider some new members, including Indonesia. Now, if Indonesia is joining, I don't see why India cannot join. So I think we should join straight away. I mean, apply to join and then put pressure on them. So that's the issue that I would like the Indian Economic Association to think of. Is this the right approach to trade policy or not? And I'd be very interested to see what articles are produced on that subject in the course of the next year. But the second point that I wanted to mention, which you all need to keep in mind, is the pace of change of technology. You know, economists have for long known that growth is the result not just of investment, but really of technical progress. I mean, I think in 1956, when Solow produced this productivity growth article showing that in the United States, only about 40% of the growth took place because of investment. The other 60% took place because of technical progress. In those days, his conception of technical progress was that it was an exogenous element that sort of fell, as they used to say in the biblical terms, like manna from heaven. You didn't have to do anything, but it just happened. I think over time, that perception changed, and people realized that, technological progress is endogenous. You get rapid technological progress if you have conditions that favor technological progress. And what favors technological progress is partly opening up to technology wherever it happens. I mean, again, this is an issue. In some parts of the world, thinking is that you shouldn't be open to foreign technical progress. You should just do everything domestically. But our own experience shows that when you open up to foreign technology, which we did in the case of automobiles, you get a lot of change in the system. And quite frankly, for 30 years, we were producing two very old model cars and no change at all in the automobile industry. And after Maruti is brought in using Japanese technology and opening up for others to bring in new and foreign technology, you had a radical change. We now have an automotive sector that is much more modern and much more capable of responding to the world. And it's changing even now because of the push for electronic vehicles. I mean, it's interesting to think about it, but our technology, our component industry at the moment is entirely oriented towards the internal combustion engine, because the vast, overwhelming majority of the cars on the road, which are the ones that need components, are really internal combustion engine cars. But if we are going to respond to the threat of climate change and reduce dependence on fossil fuels, petrol and diesel, we need to move to electronic vehicles. Moving to electronic vehicles means a very radical change in the structure of the automotive components industry. I mean, some components will still remain, but a lot more, but the components needed for a combustion engine are much larger than the components needed actually for a battery. So a modern car is just a platform with a battery. And yes, you need components for the platform, and we have a good enough industry to do that. We need to develop a comparable industry for batteries. We're doing it now for two-wheelers, not really for the four-wheelers. Again, this is something that has to take place over time. But in this, there will have to be a combination of domestic engineering and technology change plus bringing in imported technology. Because, the electronic vehicle technology transformation is a global one. And research efforts around the world are going to how to improve battery technology. At the moment, a lot of the components needed for batteries are monopolized by China, but then there's research taking place that will weaken that monopoly. All this will take time, take about 10 years. But over that period, we need to be ready to see both what are our production possibilities and what are our technology possibilities. So again, my feeling is that in the world of changing technology, question arises: should we be like China, which essentially developed all the technology domestically? And let me say, they've been remarkably successful. Let's concede that. But remember that China has been successful because it is able to invest 50% of its GDP take 50% of its GDP, if not more, and put it into investment. They're running the kind of system that enables them to extract that surplus. Consumption in China is only 45% of GDP. Consumption in India is 65% of GDP. So for us to be able to reduce domestic consumption as a percentage of GDP in order to do investment is not credible. I think we have to have a different approach, but it must be an approach where we are open to foreign technology, but we're also doing something to protect domestic, to encourage the development of domestic technology. And exactly what the instruments for doing that are is an open subject. Here, there is a basic problem, and the problem is either you just put a ban on imports and just hope that people, if you ban imports, then whatever technology is embodied will be whatever is domestically available. And if that domestic available technology doesn't change, then the using sector just remains locked into a very old-fashioned technology. That's what happened to India's automobile industry through the 50s and the 60s and even the 70s. Remember, Maruti came only in 1983. Now, we don't want to repeat that experience. So you have to be able to bring in modern technology as it comes, but equally you need to give a measure of support to domestic industry. That measure of support, if it is directed to supporting research, that doesn't distort anything. It actually improves the country's ability to make technological changes. But remember that to give support to industry, to do technology costs money. I mean, you either have to provide the money through the budget or you have to provide it through a lot of financial incentives. And let's be clear, in the United States, a huge contribution of the government to the development of technology comes from the investment that the government makes in national security and the spillover benefits of that which go into the commercial world. I mean, in the 1950s or so, in the early 60s, when the United States funded the development of an internet system of interconnection, primarily in order to ensure that the interconnection in telecommunications and computers would not be affected by a security hit. So the whole invention of systems of connection where messages were transmitted through packages, and if one route was damaged in the interconnection, it could take another route. This was ultimately funded by US military research, and then it spilled over, and you saw what happened with the internet. Now we don't have resources of that scale, but there's no question that what we are seeing today is a research investment of approximately 0.6% of GDP compared to in China, which has more than 2 point something percent. So most people think that 0.6% is far too low. And if you really want to develop an internationally competitive for an emerging market country research program, then this research must go from something like 0.6% to something like 2% of GDP. A lot of this should be research done by the private sector, but it will have to be incentivized by giving tax benefits. And if you give tax benefits, then basically you're losing tax resources, and that must be fitted into your fiscal balance. Um, I want to give just one example of the dilemma that we face. And that example really relates to solar cells. You know, we became highly, like the rest of the world, we became highly dependent on Chinese solar cells. The Chinese had massively overinvested in solar cells. That took resources. And that's really why their GDP, which goes into consumption, is only 45%. Chinese capacity for solar cells today is more than double the global demand for solar cells. Now, as a result of this, they not only have a huge industry producing solar cells, but they've caused a global crash in prices of solar cells. And we want to develop our own solar cells, and we have an industry. We've now introduced, originally, we thought we would introduce a duty. So we had a duty of about 20% or so. That was raised and then lowered again and so on. But it was felt that even with that even with 40-50% duty, Indian cells would not be competitive with Chinese cells. So the government introduced a form of licensing where if you want to produce electricity to sell to a distribution company through the bids that are run by SECI, the Solar Electric Corporation of India, you have to have panels and modules and solar cells sourced from a list of 6 approved manufacturers. So this means that if you want to set up a solar cell generating system, you're forced to go to one of 6 manufacturers. You can say that there's competition amongst these manufacturers, and that's good. I mean, it would be terrible if the list was just 2. But you know, these are still closed markets. I mean, the incentive for each one to improve his technology is not as strong as if the system was open for any kind of import. Now, remember, when I say any kind of import, I'm not saying without duty. I mean, for example, if today Indian solar cells would become competitive in the market if the duty was raised to, say, 80%, then you would have a discipline in the sense that if somebody internationally brings in a superior chip which has a higher efficiency, there would be a strong incentive to get that even at the higher duty rate. So the industry would remain integrated with global technology trends, only paying more for imported technology. We have a system where the duty is much lower, and therefore we've introduced licensing. The trouble with licensing is that if somebody internationally were to produce a more efficient solar chip, domestic solar generators will not be able to import it. And that is closing off an important area for absorption of technology. So I think this is where, if you can subsidize the domestic technology, then the user doesn't suffer. I mean, in the sense that if you think Indian solar costs are high, but in due course they will go down, then the right thing to do would be to have a high duty today and have a staged reduction. It's now 80%, is going to go down to 20% in 5 years or 6 years, and lower it by a certain amount every year. That gives the domestic producer a very clear signal that you better shape up and be technologically competent. You won't be protected indefinitely. But if you use the licensing method, that's not there. And I think then you run the risk that if tomorrow somebody, even today, by the way, Chinese cells are marginally more efficient than ours. I mean, I don't remember the numbers exactly, but conversion efficiency from solar energy to electricity is maybe around 22% or so for our domestic cells, and the Chinese are producing better cells with a 24% conversion efficiency. But scientists say that this conversion efficiency could easily go to as much as 30% or 35%. And there's a lot of work being done in laboratories around the world to see how this can happen. I think we have to be very careful that we don't get locked into an old technology, which is exactly what happened with the automotive industry, where the what we call the ambassador was actually a version of the Morris Oxford of 1956, which was still doing a busy sale in the 1980s in India. In fact, many people actually liked it because they thought it was a sturdy car. And since our roads were not very good, they felt happier. But as roads improved, there was no chance for that kind of vehicle to be competitive. So, question arises, technology is changing and is changing very rapidly. The best way of illustrating this is to keep in mind that when cars were first introduced in the early 20th century, it took about 10 years for the number, if not more, for the number of cars on the road to reach 100 million. By the time TV was introduced, it took 10 years to get to 100 million. And ChatGPT, which was introduced 3 years ago or 2 years ago, reached 100 million users in exactly 3 weeks or something like that. So, the pace of change has become very large. And this has implications for domestic policy. Are we willing to let the new technologies come at whatever pace they do? Or are we going to slow it down on the grounds that the economy cannot adjust to this change? And I think this is, I don't want to answer that question, but my instinct is that we should not be slowing down the rate of transformation of technology. India should India should gear itself up to recognizing that technology is changing and many things are going to become outdated. Don't try to protect technology which you can see is not going to be the most efficient. That has cost implications, but denying the technology has competitiveness implications, and we have to weigh the two. It's no good. It's no good just saying, "Oh no, this will create too much unemployment, so we don't have it." So I think this is really what we need to think about. So I'm running out of time, but I will now speak very briefly on the issue of climate change. You know, there's been a long debate globally on climate change, and I think there is a scientific consensus that climate change has taken place because of what are called anthropogenic activities. It means human beings burning fuel, fossil fuel, whether wood or diesel or coal or petrol, which produces CO2, and the CO2 accumulates in the atmosphere, which causes global warming. So, if you want to stop global warming, you have to stop accumulating CO2. Now, the existing CO2 in the atmosphere will decay over thousands of years. Basically, in the short run, in the next 20, 30, 40 years, stopping global warming means net zero emissions of CO2 must be reached as soon as possible. Remember, it's not enough to reduce the emissions. You have to go to zero, because if you reduce emissions, it keeps adding to the stock of emissions in the atmosphere. Now, naturally, since this is a global phenomenon, developing countries have consistently argued, in my view rightly, that look, the accumulation in the atmosphere has been the result of the industrialization of developed countries. I mean, it may Paris Agreement was about. But reducing the emissions in our Prime Minister made the commitment, which is a good commitment in my view, that we will reach net zero by 2070. Indonesia and China said 2060, but we said 2070, that's fine. And other countries, the Western countries generally said 2050, and there was some agreement that they would try to ensure a certain amount of assistance for developing countries. Now, that looked good, but it soon became clear that what was actually agreed would not succeed in limiting climate change, global warming to the formula was ideally 1.5 degrees centigrade above pre-industrial levels, but definitely lower than 2 degrees centigrade. Now, the reason this number was chosen was that there was a lot of scientific evidence that if global warming exceeds 1.5 degrees centigrade, then the changes in the sea level because of melting of glaciers, etc., would pretty much obliterate many of the small island nations. And so people agreed that yes, we should go to 1.5 degrees if we can. But the review, which was done in 2023 in the UAE, in Doha, showed quite clearly that what was being agreed and done would not achieve that objective. So we have to go even stronger than the commitments made in Glasgow. And that was supposed to be done by 2030 in Belém, by 2025 in Belém, in the meeting that just finished about a month ago. Now, since then, there has been a significant deterioration in the global consensus because the United States has walked out of the Paris Agreement. So now we are faced with a situation where the largest economy in the world, that's the US, which is also the second largest polluter, is no longer committed to the commitments it earlier made to go to net zero by 2050. It is not also committed to providing any financial assistance for the transition. The European countries have not actually walked out, but their commitment to reduce their emissions has weakened considerably because of their security position. They're not very happy with importing gas from Russia. That's a fossil fuel. So they push back a little bit more into coal. So it's not clear whether they'll be able to achieve their reductions in emissions, which they're promised. And certainly they are under pressure to raise their defense expenditure because of the geopolitical developments I referred to earlier. And as a result of that, they've cut a lot of aid. So they're really not going to be in much of a position to provide financial assistance. So in climate change, we face a challenge. The scientific evidence is overwhelming that climate change is taking place, global warming is taking place. Scientific evidence is also overwhelming that India will be one of the countries worst affected. So what do? Do we simply do nothing in terms of mitigation? Or do we say, no, we think the global weakening of the consensus is unfortunate, but it's temporary. And that maybe in a couple of years, the world will come around to seeing that climate change is as much of a threat as we thought earlier, and there'll be greater willingness to cooperate. Meanwhile, India should remain on track to achieve net zero by 2070. That, in my view, is the right thing to do. But remember, to be on track to achieve net zero by 2070 involves making major changes in many, many areas of policy. And most importantly, in the energy sector. In the energy sector, we've done a reasonably good job in terms of increasing the flow of investment, private investment, towards renewable energy. And many private sector companies have done an excellent job in setting up renewable energy capacity. So, the old notion that we can't handle the technology, we can't prepare the projects, we can't implement the projects, that's not true. There are people who are able to do that. But there are real constraints in doing so, which will show up very quickly. One of the constraints is that when you go for renewable energy, you you are going for an energy source that is intermittent. I mean, the sun doesn't shine at night, so solar supply dips once the sun has gone down. If you're using wind energy, maybe they're
Sir,
uncorrelated with that, so
sir,
the two together have less variability, but they're variable. On the other hand, our demand is much more flat. So, how do we reconcile a variable source with a flat demand? Well, clearly, you go in for storage, grid-sized batteries that cost money, and we have to change our system of bidding for power in order to build in the development of these systems. That is happening. But even with these systems, we will not be able to equalize the supply of power in a flat kind of way, the way we could with thermal sources. Variable pricing of electricity. That is to say, the price of electricity must fall at the peak solar supply during the middle of the day and should rise in the evenings and night when solar is no longer freely available. Even if you use batteries are very expensive. So the use of batteries to even out supplies itself means that the electricity costs more at night than it does during the day. We have not,
sir, sir, kindly.
in our system, politicians are extremely reluctant.
Sir, I'm sorry, sir. Sorry for interrupting.
Said that they'll have to change, and I think economists need to make it clear. Can we seriously expect to move from a position where today about 12% of our total electricity comes from renewable sources to a situation, let us say 20 years from now, when 80% will come from renewable sources? Can we make that transition without making a transition towards greater use of variable electricity pricing? And when I say variable pricing, I mean not just for industry. It'll have to be variable pricing for commerce, it'll have to be variable pricing even for households. We may need to subsidize the very poor, but the way to subsidize the very poor is to give a direct grant, not to give them a lower price at which they can consume whatever electricity they want. So, I mean, those are very big policy changes, and I mean, one implication of that also is agriculture. One of the most politically difficult things in India is to accept the proposition
Sir,
that
one second.
agriculture
Sir,
needs
really sorry, sir, for interrupting. Am I audible, sir?
economic pricing of power. The need for power is really linked to the use of water
Sir,
in an
sorry for the
unconstrained manner.
interrupting,
That
sir.
also is made impossible by happens. There's no doubt that the extent of water scarcity more. I'm trying to highlight the fact that these are very difficult decisions. Get the political system aware of these decisions. The last two sentences that all these things have to be fitted into a framework of fiscal management which is seen to be sensible. And you know that you frequently hear that we can meet this objective by government spending more money on this and more money on something else. I think the fact of the matter is that all this has to be done within a framework in which the total budget deficit is kept within reasonable targets. So adding up all these things together is a very important discipline. And when you find that the resources are not available to subsidize activity, then you will have to find some other ways of achieving the end result. I'm sorry that I've not given you a set of answers. I've really tried to raise a number of questions. But certainly, I think it would be good if the economists who attend the Indian Economic Association sort of focus on these hard questions and make that a substantial input into the formulation of economic policy. So with those words, let me thank you for inviting me. I'm sorry if we have taken more time than was allotted, but I enjoyed it very much. Thank you all very much.
Sir, thank you very much. We are really truly enlightened. It's a thought-provoking lecture we just heard from you, sir. And your insights from economic journey and the challenge of inclusive, sustainable growth really made us, more vibrant, sir. Definitely, we are very happy. Thousands of delegates are hearing your lecture, sir. So thankful. I now request the chairperson of the session, Dr. Chancellor G. Viswanathan, sir, to just give his remarks, sir. Once again, sir.
ஐயப்பா தமிழ் தாய் வாழ்த்து கொஞ்சம் ஃபார்மலா சரி சரி சொல்லுங்க நிகழ்ச்சி ஐயப்பா ரெடி அப்படியே நிக்கிறாங்க இந்த மூன்றாம் நாள் நிகழ்வுகளுக்கான தலைமை விருந்தினர்கள் அனைவரும் இப்பொழுது மேடையிலே இருக்கிறார்கள். இந்த நிகழ்வுகளை இப்பொழுது நாம் முறைப்படி இன்றைய நிகழ்வுகள் இப்பொழுது முறைப்படி தமிழ்த்தாய் வாழ்த்துடன் நாம் தொடங்குகின்றோம். அனைவரும் அரங்கில் எழுந்து நின்று இப்பொழுது தமிழ்த்தாய் வாழ்த்தோடு இந்த நிகழ்வுகளை தொடங்குகிறோம். நீராறும் கடலுடுத்த நிலமடந்து கெழிதொழுகும் நன்றி. வேல்ஸ் பல்கலைக்கழகம் முன்னெடுத்திருக்கின்ற இந்திய பொருளாதார சங்கத்தினுடைய இந்த 108வது மாநாடு வெகு சிறப்பாக 3வது நாளாக இன்றைக்கு தொடங்குகிறது. இந்த நாட்டினுடைய மிகச்சிறந்த பொருளாதார மேதைகளும் கல்வியாளர்களும் கல்வி வேந்தர்களும் இந்த அரங்கிலும் மேடையிலும் அமர்ந்திருக்கின்றார்கள். இந்த 3வது நாள் அமர்வுகள் நிகழ்வுகள் தமிழ்நாட்டினுடைய பொருளாதாரத்தை மையமாக வைத்து பல்வேறு நிகழ்வுகள் தொடங்க இருக்கின்றன. இந்த நிகழ்வுகளுக்கு மகுடம் சேர்த்ததைப் போல தமிழ்நாட்டினுடைய முக்கியமான அமைச்சர்களில் ஒருவராக பன்னெடும் காலமாக இத்துறையிலே அனுபவம் பெற்ற நம்முடைய மதிப்பிற்கும் மரியாதைக்கும் உரிய ஐயா திரு தாமு அன்பரசன் அவர்கள் இங்கே வந்திருக்கிறார்கள் என்பது நமக்கெல்லாம் மிகுந்த பெருமையையும் சிறப்பையும் தரக்கூடியது. மாண்புமிகு அமைச்சர் அவர்கள் குறு சிறு மற்றும் நடுத்தர தொழில் நிறுவனங்கள் நகர்ப்புற வாழ்விட மேம்பாட்டு வாரியத்துறை அமைச்சராக மகத்தான செம்பணி ஆற்றி வருகிறார் என்பது இப்பொழுது, ஆனால் இதற்கு முன்பும் அவர் தொழிலாளர் நலத்துறை அமைச்சராகவும் இருந்திருக்கின்றார்கள். பண்டித நேரு பெருமான் தான் சொல்வார், நான் வணங்கும் ஆலயம் என்பது இந்த நாட்டில் இருக்கிற தொழிற்சாலைகளும் தொழில் கூடங்களும் என்று. அதற்கு இன்றைக்கு ஒரு சான்றாக நம்முடைய அமைச்சர் அவர்கள் விளங்கி கொண்டிருக்கின்றார்கள். மகத்தான வளர்ச்சியில் பெரு தொழில்களும் சிறு தொழில்களும் இரண்டாக அதை உங்கள் துறையை சார்ந்தவர்கள் பிரித்து அதை ஆய்வு செய்வார்கள். அதில் குறு சிறு மற்றும் நடுத்தர தொழில் நிறுவனங்களை முன்னணியில் இந்த மாநிலத்தில் கொண்டு வந்து நிறுத்துவதில் முன்னணியில் விளங்குவர் மாண்புமிகு அமைச்சர் அவர்கள் நம்முடையே வந்திருக்கிறார் என்பதை மெத்த மகிழ்ச்சியோடு அவர்களுக்கு பல்கலைக்கழகத்தினுடைய வேந்தர் அவர்கள் சார்பிலும் மற்ற அனைவர் சார்பிலும் நல்வரவு கூறிக்கொள்வதில் நாம் மகிழ்கின்றோம். அவரை போலவே பேராசிரியர் நாகநாதன் அவர்கள் தமிழகத்தின் முக்கியமான பொருளாதார நிபுணர்களில் ஒருவராக விளங்குபவர் ஐயா அவர்கள். அது மட்டுமல்ல, சென்னை பல்கலைக்கழகத்தினுடைய மேனாள் பொருளாதாரத்துறை தலைவராகவும் அரும்பணி ஆற்றியவர். அவர் மகத்தான பொருளாதார மேதைகளையும் பேராசிரியர்களையும் உருவாக்கியவர் என்பதற்கு ஒரு சோறு பதம் நம் பல்கலைக்கழகத்தினுடைய இணைவேந்தர் டாக்டர் ஜோதி முருகன் அவர்களுடைய PhD-யினுடைய கைடாகவும் இருந்தவர். தம்மின் தம் மக்கள் அறிவுடைமை மாநிலத்து மண்ணுயிர்க்கெல்லாம் அழகு என்று சொன்னதை தம்மின் தம் மக்கள் அறிவுடையவர் என்பதை நிரூபித்து காட்டியிருக்கிற பேராசிரியர் அவர்கள் கலைஞர் காலத்திலேயே திட்டக்குழு உறுப்பினராக இருந்தவர். இப்போதைய முதல்வர் அவர்களிடத்தில் மத்திய மாநில உறவு குறித்த உயர்மட்ட குழு உறுப்பினராகவும் அரும்பணியாற்றுகிறார். ஐயா அவர்களையும் அனைவர் சார்பிலும் குறிப்பாக பல்கலைக்கழக வேந்தர் அவர்கள் சார்பிலும் வருக வருக என்று அழைப்பதில் நாம் பெருமகிழ்ச்சி அடைகின்றோம். அவரை போலவே இன்றைக்கு நம்முடைய குடும்பத்தில் ஒருவராக பன்னெடும் காலம் நம்முடைய வேந்தரோடும் இணைவேந்தரோடும் நெருக்கமான தொடர்பு உரிய வணக்கத்திற்கும் மரியாதைக்கும் உரிய VIT பல்கலைக்கழகத்தினுடைய வேந்தர் ஐயா திரு விஸ்வநாதன் அவர்களும் இங்கே வந்திருக்கிறார். அவருக்கும் அனைவர் சார்பிலும் நல்வரவு கூறுகின்றோம். நம்முடைய பகுதி பல்லாவரம் சட்டமன்ற தொகுதியினுடைய உறுப்பினர் ஐயா ஈகா அவர்கள் வந்திருக்கிறார்கள். அவருக்கும் அனைவர் சார்பிலும் நல்வரவு கூறுகின்றோம். உண்மையிலேயே முதுமுனைவராக 3 நாட்களும் நம்மோடு இருந்து எல்லா வகையிலும் நமக்கு உறுதுணை வழங்கி கொண்டிருக்கின்ற பேராசிரியர் வேதகிரி சண்முக சுந்தரம் ஐயா அவர்களும் அவருடைய திருமதியார் அவர்களும் வந்திருக்கிறார்கள். அவருக்கும் நல்வரவு கூறுகின்றோம். அதே போலவே இங்கே வந்திருக்கின்ற to all the delegates from various states of the country and all the top academicians, all the PhD scholars, on behalf of our beloved and respected Chancellor Dr. Aisari Ganesh and our Pro-Chancellor Dr. Jodi Murugan and each and every one of us in this campus, we welcome you all. A grand welcome to you all. Thank you. இப்போது வந்திருக்கின்ற பெருமக்கள் அனைவருக்கும் பல்கலைக்கழக வேந்தர் அவர்கள் சிறப்பு செய்கின்றார்கள். மாண்புமிகு அமைச்சர் அவர்களுக்கு வேல்ஸ் பல்கலைக்கழகத்தின் சார்பில் இப்போது சால்வை அணிவித்து செம்மரியாதை செய்யப்படுகின்றது. இணைவேந்தர் டாக்டர் ஜோதி முருகன் அவர்கள் சிறப்பு செய்கின்றார்கள். மாலையும் நினைவு பரிசும் அவருக்கு அளிப்பதில் நாங்கள் பெருமிதம் கொள்கின்றோம். அடுத்ததாக பேராசிரியர் நாகநாதன் அவர்களுக்கு சால்வையும் மாலையும் அணிவித்து டாக்டர் ஜோதி முருகன் அவர்கள் அனைவர் சார்பாகவும் குறிப்பாக வேந்தர் சார்பாகவும் இப்பொழுது சிறப்பு செய்கின்றோம். பேராசிரியர் நாகநாதன் அவர்களுக்கு நம்முடைய பல்கலைக்கழகத்தின் சார்பில் வேந்தர் சார்பில் நிறைவு பரிசு அளிக்கப்பெறுகிறது. தொடர்ந்து வேந்தர் சார்பிலும் நம்முடைய மண்ணின் மைந்தர் பல்லாவரம் தொகுதி சட்டமன்ற உறுப்பினர் ஐயா அவர்கள் நம்முடைய எந்த ஒரு சிறப்பான முன்னெடுப்புக்கும் உறுதுணை தருகின்றவர், தோளோடு தோள் நின்று பெரும் ஒத்துழைப்பு வழங்குகிற ஐயா மாண்புமிகு ஈகா அவர்களுக்கு சிறப்பு செய்யப்படுகிறது. அதைத் தொடர்ந்து we are so delighted to honor the VIT Chancellor Dr. Vishwanathan. As you all know, he has been with us for the past 3 days and he has given a maximum contribution to make this function a grand success. Thank you, sir. Thank you.
அனைவருக்கும் வணக்கம். அன்பான வேண்டுகோளை ஏற்று இங்கே வந்திருக்கின்ற எனது குடும்ப நண்பரும் எங்களுடைய குடும்பத்தினுடைய வளர்ச்சியில் பெரும் அக்கறை கொண்டுள்ள பேராசிரியர் நாகநாதன் அவர்கள் இந்த 3 நாள் நிகழ்வின் 3வதுனுடைய முற்பகலினுடைய நிகழ்ச்சியாக தமிழ்நாடு நிகழ்விற்கு தலைமையேற்று தமிழ்நாட்டில் கலைஞர் தொடங்கி தற்பொழுது முதலமைச்சராகின்ற மாண்புமிகு ஸ்டாலினுடைய காலம் வரை தமிழ்நாட்டின் தொழில்துறை பொருளாதார மேம்பாடு பற்றி மிக அருமையான ஒரு சிறப்புரை ஆற்றிருக்கிறார். அவரை எங்கள் பல்கலைக்கழகத்தின் சார்பாகவும் ஐஏனுடைய அமைப்பின் சார்பாகவும் அன்புடன் உரையாற்ற அழைக்கிறேன். வருக, உங்கள் உரையை தருக.
இந்திய பொருளாதார கழகத்தின் சார்பில் நடைபெறும் இந்த கூட்டத்திற்கு வருகை புரிந்துள்ள எனது அருமை நண்பர் அன்பரசன் அவர்களே, மாண்புமிகு அமைச்சர் அன்பரசன் அவர்களே, இந்த தொகுதியின் சட்டமன்ற உறுப்பினர் எனது அருமை நண்பர் கருணாநிதி அவர்களே, இவ்விழாவிற்கு வந்திருக்கின்ற எனது ஆசிரியர், எனது வழிகாட்டி, அவரிடம்தான் நான் முதல் பிஹெச்டி பெற்றேன். 100 ஆண்டு வாழ்ந்து எங்களுக்கெல்லாம் வழிகாட்டி கொண்டு இருக்கின்ற பெருந்தகை பேராசிரியர் சண்முகசுந்தரனார் அவர்களே, அவருடைய துணைவியார், என் துணைவியாருக்கு கல்லூரி முதல்வராக இருந்தவர் யசோதா சண்முகசுந்தரம் அவர்களே, என்னை வரவேற்று பேசிய எனது அருமை நண்பர், என்னுடைய அருமை மாணவர், பல கல்வி தகுதிகளையும் பண்பு தகுதிகளையும் பெற்ற டாக்டர் ஜோதி முருகன் அவர்களே, இந்த விழாவிலே துணைவேந்தர் அவர்களே, இந்த விழாவில் பங்கேற்றிருக்கின்ற அனைவருக்கும் என் முதல் வணக்கத்தை தெரிவித்துக் கொள்கிறேன். I am sorry to address in Tamil for a few minutes because Tamil Nadu is following 2 language formula successfully and we have gained also. We achieved highest growth rate of 11.1% through the two language formula, because which is our basis of the language policy of Dravidian movement. I am proud to say few significant factors that actually embedded in our culture, in our polity, in our society, and in our economy. You know, Tamil Nadu for several thousand years had possessed very rich, diverse, and basic social economic features. The ancient Tamils made fivefold classifications of the land according to the land structure and fertility. In nowhere in the world, the classification Adam Smith made is a division of labor. Tamils made division of lands according to the fertility. They are Kurinji. What Kurinji means? Mountain. It is Tamil word Kurinji. Mountain and mountain associated regions. Mullai, forest and forest related regions. Marudam, farmlands and agricultural regions. Neithal, coastal and coastal sea associated regions. And Palai, drylands. This is a classification made about 2,500 years ago by Tamils. The ancient classification of Tamil Nadu is rooted in biodiversity values. What we today speak biodiversity, we adhered the biodiversity principle in the land classification. Even after thousands of years and numerous economic changes, the fundamental system of land classification across the regions of present-day Tamil Nadu continue to influence agriculture production, horticulture, fisheries, and the maintenance of the ecosystem, especially in the Western Ghats system. It is a unique preservation for our land, forest resources, the Western Ghats system. Actually, Tamil Nadu had possessed a very great economist. I worked in the economics department under the able stewardship of our professor, Dr. V. Shanmusundaranath. Before that, first time Gilbert Slater was appointed from England in 1950, and he continued the office in 1921. And he was a first economist in India, even before Mahatma Gandhi, insisted the villages should be center of economic development. He made village studies. Actually, what we today very near to Pallavaram, he studied there, Tambaram, around Tambaram, and South Arcade, Iruvelipattanam. Next professor was Professor P.J. Thomas. P.J. Thomas was the economic advisor of the Rajaji when he was Prime Minister. He only introduced sales tax for India. Sales tax was introduced by Professor Thomas. Many people say Rajaji implemented it, not Rajaji envisaged this tax system. Thomas actually suggested as economic advisor to the Chief Minister. And our Professor Shanmusundaram, actually the first member of the first instituted State Planning Commission in 1971 under the great leadership of Kalangari M. Karunanidhi, late M. Karunanidhi. With this introduction, I want to say the certain political, social and economic development that shaped the Tamil Nadu economy. The first party, what I wanted to tell, the Justice Party, in 1921 formed the government in Madras Presidency. Between 1921 and 1937, several budgets were presented by the Justice Party government. The provincial government took initiative and introduced many welfare and progressive programs. Actually, the Justice Party government only introduced a very progressive reservation system. That reservation system given equal opportunities for all, including the Brahmins, Christians, Muslims, OBCs, and Dalits. That was the first reservation policy in India which had altered the structure of the society and made everybody to go to school. Actually, another achievement was the Justice Party introduced was actually our Anna, great leader Anna once said, the Justice Party rule was under the diarchy system. British government was overlooked the administration. In spite of the fact, the Justice Party was able to achieve very great achievement, which Anna in 1937, great lead, founder of the DMK said, in the election meeting supporting the Populi Raja, Anna said, I quote Anna, after having worked in diarchy in the most successful manner, we have a right to approach the electorate for fresh support. We can point out various legislative measures, some of which are most far-reaching character, and all of them for public good. This was Anna's speech in 1937 February. This Justice Party system more or less followed the Western idea of welfare, social welfare system of European countries. That welfare system continued to exist in Tamil Nadu. When Anna himself formed the government in 1967, he followed the welfare system adopted by the Justice Party. These very great successes have been found in our economy. The welfare system Anna introduced was also followed by great leader Kamaraj. When Kamaraj became the Chief Minister in 1954 to 63 Chief Minister, he has opened every panchayat on school, every panchayat. Actually, it opened within a short span of 4 years, 22,000 schools he has opened. It is a greatest achievement. That is led to the growth of education. He was also, Justice Party only introduced midday meal school scheme for the poorest children to attract students from the poorer section to school system. That system continued in the Madras Corporation area. Kamarajar has extended midday meal scheme across the state. Actually, I met Kamaraj in 1975. My father-in-law was a great freedom fighter, and they stayed in the same jail for more than 3 years. What Kamaraj told, I want to tell to the audience. When the midday meal scheme was taken to Planning Commission, Jawaharlal Nehru was the chairman of the Planning Commission. All officials opposed this system will not work. Students will eat and sleep in the class. Kamaraj said, we experimented through the support of voluntary agencies in some districts. Our program has succeeded. We wanted a development program and planning program. The economist in the Planning Commission argued it is a non-development scheme. But Kamaraj said, what is the difference between development and non-development? Giving food to school children is a non-development, do you mean to say? He argued. Immediately, Jawaharlal Nehru, it was told by Kamaraj to me and to my father-in-law, to my wife, when we met after the marriage. Nehru said, he is a pragmatic chief minister. Give it the noon meal scheme to him. Tamil Nadu. 1957 till date, Tamil Nadu successfully implemented this noon meal scheme because of the Comrade initiative. You know, the same scheme was introduced by the Planning Commission only in 2005. This is what I am telling. Tamil Nadu has introduced some pioneering programs. Anna's legacy still continue to shape the governance of the Dravidian parties. Similarly, MGR, Jayalalitha, during their chief ministership, they also retained the methods followed by the Dravidian ethos, Dravidian ideology. They followed it. And now, during Karunanidhi's regime, he insisted both small-scale industries, medium-scale industries, and industrial growth he has initiated through a government program. I had the opportunity to serve under him, under Dr. M. Kalaignar Karunanidhi, during 11th plan period. I was the vice chairman of the State Planning Commission. He had given a cabinet status to me. As a first year professor, he is given a cabinet status in the Planning Commission. During this period, 2006 to 11, because I want to cut short my speech for the want of time, I had the privilege of serving as the vice chairman of the State Planning Commission, during which 11th five-year plan was implemented. The union government emphasized on inclusive growth. For the first time, members of the State Planning Commission, along with the officials, visited every district to engage directly with the stakeholders across all sectors. Feedback was gathered from farmers, laborers, and industrialists. Inputs were also sought from the experts and the public worldwide through online platforms. Environmental specialists were consulted to guide sustainable development. These insights were meticulously reviewed and sector-wise financial allocations were finalized. We, Tamil Nadu government, first estimated the expenditure 85,000 crores. But in the end of the period 11, we have incurred 93,000 crores money, which was a greatest success. The planned success was reflected in the overall growth rate, which surged to 13.1%, well above the projected by the Planning Commission 9% growth rate. As a result, the 11th plan earned the recognition as a true people's plan. During the Chief Minister of MGR also I told, and now present Chief Minister Muthuvel Karunanidhi Stalin assumed as the Chief Minister in 2011, the state economic growth over the past 4.5 years, reached to 13.13% against the all India growth rate of 6%. Because the Tamil Nadu government successfully introduced many new initiatives like Mahalir Urimya Tattam. Every woman in Tamil Nadu, poor woman, is given 1,000 rupees per month. That is free bus travel for women, breakfast scheme for school students. Midday meal scheme was introduced by Justice Party, followed by Congress Party, and followed by other parties. Now, Tamil Nadu is giving breakfast for poorer students. Similarly, we reached all the marginalized sections of the society through many of the programs in the 4.5 years. Therefore, Tamil Nadu is able to sustain the higher growth rate, and Tamil Nadu is one of the most literate states in India, consistently excelling in elementary, secondary, and higher education enrollment. In 2025, 1.29 crore students are enrolled in 59 100,000 schools. The state gross enrollment ratio stands 98.4%. Tamil Nadu also excels in higher education, having 3 372 government hospitals and 36 government medical colleges. According to the 2004 statistics, Union government, this is a very important point for which we are struggling too hard. Union government collected 48.1 lakh crores tax revenue, which accounts 72% of the total tax revenue collected, while the state collected 17 lakhs crores. This is only forms 27%. However, the states are responsible for around 52% of the total expenditure in India, whereas the union government incurs only 48%. This clearly indicates a structural imbalance. The union government collects nearly 2/3 of the total tax revenue, but spend less than half, while the states only about 1/4 of the tax revenue, bear the more than half the expenditure of the responsibilities. Many socio-economic development schemes implemented by state governments are currently duplicated by the union government at different levels, resulting in wastage of scarce financial resource. Therefore, there is an urgent need to revamp the union-state financial relations in India to ensure these valuable resources are utilized efficiently for the effective function of the economy. Under the circumstances, the Tamil Nadu successfully achieved the key human development indicators as reflected in the Union Development Program. Amartya Sen actually commenting on in Tamil Nadu economy, he says, quote, Tamil Nadu is another interesting case of state achieving rapid progress over relatively short period, though it started from appalling levels of poverty, deprivation and inequality. Old programs, social programs such as universal midday meal scheme in schools and the provisions of extensive social infrastructure and electricity connections made Tamil Nadu a progressive state in India. He quotes another one important, the reason, he says, mentioned by, he pointed out, is a social reform movement initiated by Periyar E.V. Ramasamy. He is responsible for socially engineered economic growth. With this, I conclude my speech. Thank you very much for kind hearing, patient hearing. Thank you. Happy New Year. Happy New Year.
அடுத்ததாக இந்த நிகழ்வுக்கு வருகை புரிந்திருக்கின்ற தமிழ்நாட்டினுடைய ஊரக மற்றும் சிறுதொழில் வளர்ச்சி அமைச்சர் மாண்புமிகு தாமோ அன்பரசன் அவர்கள் இங்கே நம்முன் உரையாற்ற வருகிறார்.
மூன்று நாட்கள் தொடர்ந்து நடைபெறுகிற இந்திய பொருளாதார சங்கத்தினுடைய 108வது ஆண்டு மாநாட்டில் அற்புதமாக உரையாற்றி வீட்டிருக்கிற ஒன்றிய மாநில அரசினுடைய உறவு குறித்த உயர்மட்ட குழுவினுடைய உறுப்பினர் மரியாதைக்குரிய அண்ணன் டாக்டர் நாகநாதன் அவர்களே, நிகழ்ச்சியிலே கலந்து கொண்டு சிறப்பித்துக் கொண்டிருக்கிற விஐடியினுடைய வேந்தர் மரியாதைக்குரிய அண்ணன் விஸ்வநாதன் அவர்களே, நிகழ்ச்சியிலே இல்லை என்று சொன்னாலும் இந்த மாநாட்டை மிகச்சிறப்பாக ஏற்பாடு செய்து நடத்தி கொண்டிருக்கிற வேல்ஸ் பல்கலைக்கழகத்துடைய நிறுவனர் வேந்தர் டாக்டர் ஐசரி கணேஷ் அவர்களே, என்னோடு இந்த நிகழ்ச்சியில் கலந்து கொண்டிருக்கிற பல்லவரம் சட்டமன்ற உறுப்பினர் என்னுடைய அன்பு சகோதரர் இ கருணா அவர்களே, மனோன்மணியம் பல்கலைக்கழகத்துடைய முன்னாள் துணைவேந்தர் டாக்டர் மரியாதைக்குரிய சண்முக சுந்தரம் அவர்களே, மதர் தெரசா பல்கலைக்கழகத்துடைய முன்னாள் துணைவேந்தர் திருமதி யசோதா சண்முக சுந்தரம் அவர்களே, தம்பி ஏ.கே. கருணாகரன் அவர்களே, தம்பி பெர்னாட் அவர்களே, பேராசிரியர் ரமேஷ்குமார் அவர்களே, வேல்ஸ் பல்கலைக்கழகத்துடைய இணைவேந்தர் மரியாதைக்குரிய ஜோதி முருகன் அவர்களே, இந்தியா முழுவதும் இருந்து இந்த மாநாட்டில் கலந்து கொண்டுள்ள பொருளாதார வல்லுநர்களே, பேராசிரியர் பெருமக்களே, கல்வியாளர்களே, மாணவ செல்வங்களே, பத்திரிகை மற்றும் ஊடகங்களைச் சேர்ந்த நண்பர்களே, வருகை தந்திருக்கிற உங்கள் அனைவருக்கும் என்னுடைய அன்பான வணக்கம். இந்திய பொருளாதார சங்கத்தினுடைய 108வது ஆண்டு மாநாட்டு கருத்தரங்கில் கலந்து கொண்டு உங்களை எல்லாம் சந்திக்கிற நல்ல வாய்ப்பை பெற்றதற்காக உள்ளபடியே நான் மகிழ்ச்சி அடைகிறேன். மிக சரியான நேரத்தில் மிகுந்த சரியான இடத்துல இந்த மாநாடு இன்றைக்கு மிகச் சிறப்பாக நடைபெற்று கொண்டிருக்கிறது. இந்தியாவிற்கே பொருளாதாரத்தில் வழிகாட்டும் மாநிலமாக உள்ள தமிழ்நாட்டில் இந்த மாநாடு நடைபெறுவது நமக்கெல்லாம் மிகப்பெரிய பெருமை என்பதை நான் மகிழ்ச்சியோடு இந்த மாநாட்டிலே தெரிவித்துக் கொள்கிறேன். இந்தியாவிற்கான பொருளாதார திட்டங்களை தீட்ட 1917ஆம் ஆண்டு உருவாக்கப்பட்ட இந்திய பொருளாதார சங்கமானது 108 ஆண்டுகளாக தனது சேவையை மிகச்சிறப்பாக இன்றைக்கு செயலாற்றி வருகிறது. இந்த சங்கம் தமிழ்நாட்டின் வறுமையை ஒழித்து வேலைவாய்ப்பினை பெருக்கி பொருளாதாரத்தில் வளர்ச்சி அடைய ஆலோசனைகளையும் வழிகாட்டுதல்களையும் ஒன்றிய மாநில அரசுகளுக்கு இன்றைக்கு வழங்கி வருகிறது. இந்திய பொருளாதார சங்கத்தில் பொருளாதார மேதை அமிர்த்யா சென், பொருளாதார வல்லுநர் முன்னாள் பாரத பிரதமர் டாக்டர் மன்மோகன் சிங் ஆகியோர் உறுப்பினராக இருந்து பணியாற்றியது இந்த சங்கத்திற்கு மிகப்பெரிய பெருமை என்பதை நான் இந்த நிகழ்ச்சியில் நினைவுபடுத்த விரும்புகிறேன். தமிழ்நாடு வேளாண்மை மட்டுமில்லாமல் நம்முடைய தமிழ்நாட்டில் இருக்கிற திருப்பூர் ஆயுத ஆடை ஏற்றுமதிக்கும், கோயம்புத்தூர் மாவட்டம் தங்க நகைகள், பொறியியல் பொருட்கள், ஆட்டோமொபைல் உதிரி பாகங்களுக்கும், சிவகாசி நவீன அச்சு தொழில், பட்டாசு தீப்பெட்டிகள் தயாரிப்புக்கும், வேலூர் மாவட்டம் தோல் மற்றும் காலணிகளுக்கும், சேலம் மாவட்டம் ஜவுளி மற்றும் வெள்ளி நகைகளுக்கும், தஞ்சை பாரம்பரிய கலைப்பொருட்கள் உற்பத்திக்கும், நம்முடைய செங்கற்பட்டு காஞ்சிபுரம் மாவட்டம் வாகன உற்பத்தி என தொழில்துறையில் பன்முகத்தன்மையோடு இன்றைக்கு நம்முடைய தமிழகம் விளங்கி கொண்டிருக்கிறது. குறிப்பாக சிறு குறு மற்றும் நடுத்தர தொழில் நிறுவனங்கள், புதிய தொழில் முனைவோர், நீண்டகால தொழில் முனைவோர், கிராமப்புற தொழில் முனைவோர், கைவினை கலைஞர்கள், சேவைத்துறையினர், மகளிர், சிறுபான்மையினர், மாற்றுத்திறனாளி தொழில் முனைவோர் என அனைத்து தரப்பினரையும் உள்ளடக்கிய வளர்ச்சிக்கு இன்றைக்கு எம்எஸ்எம்இ துறை மிகச்சிறப்பாக செயல்பட்டு வருகிறது. எம்எஸ்எம்இ நிறுவனங்களுடைய முக்கியத்துவத்தை உணர்ந்த நம்முடைய மாண்புமிகு தமிழ்நாடு முதலமைச்சர் அவர்கள் இந்த கொரோனா தொற்றின் போது எந்த அளவிற்கு பாதிக்கப்பட்டது என்பது உங்களுக்கெல்லாம் தெரியும். அப்பேற்பட்ட சோதனையான காலத்தில் இந்த எம்எஸ்எம்இ நிறுவனங்களை மீண்டும் தூக்கி நிறுத்துவதற்காக டாக்டர் சுந்தரதேவன் அவருடைய தலைமையில் வல்லுநர் குழு அமைக்கப்பட்டு அந்த குழு 16/3/2022 அன்று ஒரு அறிக்கையை நம்முடைய முதலிடத்தில் வழங்கியது. அந்த அறிக்கையின் பேரில் பல்வேறு திட்டங்களை இன்றைக்கு செயல்படுத்தி இன்றைக்கு எம்எஸ்எம்இ நிறுவனங்களை தூக்கி நிறுத்திய பெருமை நம்முடைய மாண்புமிகு தமிழ்நாடு முதலமைச்சருக்கு சேரும் என்பதை நான் மகிழ்ச்சியோடு இந்த மாநாட்டில் தெரிவிக்க விரும்புகிறேன். குறிப்பாக 200க்கும் மேற்பட்ட உரிமங்களை தொழில் நிறுவனம் ஒரே இடத்தில் பெறுவதற்கு ஒற்றைச்சாளர் இணையதளம் 2.0 திட்டத்தை தொடங்கி வைத்திருக்கிறோம். இந்தியாவிலே எந்த மாநிலத்திலும் இல்லாத அளவிற்கு ஆயுதிராவிடர் மற்றும் பழங்குடியினர் தொழில் முனைவர்களாக உருவாக்குகிற அண்ணல் அம்பேத்கர் தொழில் முன்னோடிகள் திட்டம் இன்றைக்கி இந்தியாவில் வேறு எங்குமே இல்லை, நாம் தான் செயல்படுத்துகிறோம். அனைத்து கைவினை கலைஞர்களுக்கும் மானியத்துடன் கடன் உதவி வழங்கிடும் கலைஞர் கைவினை திட்டத்தை நாம் தான் அறிவிச்சிருக்கிறோம். தொழில் முனைவோருக்கு எளிதில் கடன் கிடைத்திட 90% வரை கடன் உத்தரவாதம் அளிக்கிற தமிழ்நாடு கடன் உத்தரவாத திட்டம், அரசு நிறுவனங்களுக்கு MSME நிறுவனம் வழங்குகிற சேவை மற்றும் விற்பனைகளுக்கான பட்டியலை வங்கிகளை வைத்து கடன் பெறுவதற்கு தமிழ்நாடு வர்த்தக வரவுகள் மற்றும் தள்ளுபடி தளம் தமிழ்நாடு ட்ரஸ்ட் திட்டம், கிராமப்புற பகுதிகளில் உள்ள தொழில் முனைவோரின் வளர்ச்சிக்காகவும் நிலையான வேலைவாய்ப்பிற்காகவும் குறும்புகள் திட்டம், MSME நிறுவனங்கள் உலகத்தரத்தில் உற்பத்தி செய்வதற்காக நவீன தொழில்நுட்ப வசதியை அளித்திடுகிற வகையில் பெருங்குழுமங்கள் மேம்பாட்டு திட்டம், தொழிலாளருக்கு குறைந்த வாடகையில் தொழிலாளர் தங்கும் விடுதிகள், தொடக்க நிலையில் உள்ள ஸ்டார்ட் அப் நிறுவனங்களுக்கு உதவிடுகிற வகையில் புத்தொழில் ஆதார நிதி வழங்குகிற திட்டம், SC/ST ஸ்டார்ட் அப் நிறுவனங்களுக்கு ஆதார நிதி திட்டம், சமச்சீர் தொழில் வளர்ச்சிக்கு உதவிடுகிற வகையில் வட்டார புத்தொழில் மையங்கள், SC/ST ஸ்டார்ட் அப் நிறுவனங்களுக்கு உதவிடும் தந்தை பெரியார் சமூக நீதி தொழில் வளர் மையம், வேளாண் விளைபொருட்களுக்கு நல்ல விலை கிடைத்திட தமிழ்நாடு உணவு பதப்படுத்துதல் மற்றும் வேளாண் ஏற்றுமதி மேம்பாட்டுக் கழகம் TANAPEX, தென்னை நார் தொழில் வளர்ச்சிக்கு தமிழ்நாடு கயிறு வணிக மேம்பாட்டு நிறுவனம் TANCAIR திட்டம் உருவாக்கம், பள்ளி மாணவரிடத்தில் புதிய கண்டுபிடிப்புகளை உருவாக்க பள்ளி புத்தாக்க மேம்பாட்டு திட்டம், 5 ஆண்டுகளில் 1,00,000 மகளிரை தொழில் முனைவோராக்க வேண்டும் என்ற எண்ணத்தில் தமிழ்நாடு மகளிர் தொழில் முனைவோர் மேம்பாட்டு திட்டம், கோயம்புத்தூரில் தங்க நகை பூங்கா, சேலத்தில் வெள்ளி கொலுசு உற்பத்தி வளாகம், கோயம்புத்தூரில் உலக புத்தொழில் மாநாடு. கடந்த 4.5 ஆண்டுகளில் 22,150 நிறுவனங்களுக்கு 10 வகையான மானியங்களுக்கு இதுவரை எந்த காலத்திலும் இல்லாத அளவிற்கு ரூபாய் 1,569 கோடி வழங்கி இருக்கிறது. இப்படி எண்ணற்ற சாதனைகளை படைத்து இன்றைக்கு MSME துறையை தூக்கி நிறுத்தி இருக்கிற பெருமை நம்முடைய முதலமைச்சருக்கு உண்டு. அதோடு மட்டுமல்ல, MSME துறையில் செயல்படுத்தப்படுகிற 6 வகையான சுய வேலைவாய்ப்பு திட்டங்களில் கடந்த 10 ஆண்டு கால அதிமுக ஆட்சியில் 55,230 தொழில் முனைவர்கள் மட்டுமே உருவாக்கப்பட்டார்கள். ஆனால் இன்றைக்கு 4.25 ஆண்டு திராவிட முன்னேற்ற கழக ஆட்சியில் 2,415 கோடியே 41 லட்சம் மானியம் தந்து ரூபாய் 6,226 கோடி 63 லட்சம் ரூபாய் கடன் வழங்கி இதுவரை இந்த 4.25 வருஷத்தில் 77,786 நபர்கள் புதிய தொழில் முனைவராக உருவாக்கப்பட்டிருக்கிறார்கள் என்பதையும் நான் பெருத்த மகிழ்ச்சியோடு இந்த மாநாட்டில் தெரிவிக்க விரும்புகிறேன். அதோடு மட்டும் இல்லை, தமிழ்நாட்டில் சமச்சீரான தொழில் வளர்ச்சி ஊக்குவிக்க வேண்டும் என்ற நல்ல நோக்கில் 13 மாவட்டங்களில் ரூபாய் 387 கோடி ரூபாய் மதிப்பில் 697.81 ஏக்கர் பரப்பில் 17 புதிய தொழிற்பேட்டைகள் உருவாக்கப்பட்டிருக்கிறது. 14 மாவட்டங்களில் 543.31 ஏக்கர் பரப்பில் ரூபாய் 419 கோடியே 58 லட்சம் ரூபாய் மதிப்பில் 16 புதிய தொழிற்பேட்டைகள் அமைக்கிற பணி இன்றைக்கு வேகமாக நடைபெறுகிறது. விரைவில் அந்த தொழிற்பேட்டைகள் தொடங்க இருக்கிறோம் என்பதையும் நான் தெரிவித்துக் கொள்கிறேன். நம்முடைய மாண்புமிகு தமிழ்நாடு முதலமைச்சருடைய புரட்சிகரமான திட்டங்களால் இன்றைக்கு இந்திய அளவில் 39,666 பதிவு செய்யப்பட்ட தொழிற்சாலைகளை கொண்டிருக்கிற ஒரே மாநிலம், முதன்மையான மாநிலம் தமிழ்நாடு என்பதை தெரிவித்துக் கொள்ள விரும்புகிறேன். தொழிற்சாலைகளில் பணிபுரிகிற பெண்கள் மகளிர் எண்ணிக்கையில் இன்றைக்கி 42% உயர்ந்து தமிழ்நாடு முதலிடம். நான் முதல்வன் திட்டத்தின் மூலமாக திறன் வாய்ந்த தொழிலாளர் எண்ணிக்கையில் இன்றைக்கி நாம் முதலிடத்தில் இருக்கிறோம். ஏற்றுமதி தயார் நிலை குறியீட்டில் 80.89 புள்ளிகள் பெற்று இன்றைக்கி தமிழ்நாடு முதலிடம். உற்பத்தி பொருட்களை மாநிலங்களில் எளிதாக கொண்டு செல்வதில் லாஜிஸ்டிக் தமிழ்நாடு இன்றைக்கு முதலிடம். புதிய கண்டுபிடிப்புகளுக்கு காப்புரிமை பெறுவதில் முதலிடம். டிஎன் ஸ்டார்ட் அப் இந்திய அளவில் சிறந்த செயல்பாட்டாளர் விருதினை பெற்று இன்றைக்கி தமிழ்நாடு முதலிடத்தில் இருக்கிறது. மின்னணு சாதனங்கள் ஏற்றுமதியில் இன்றைக்கி நாம் முதலிடத்தில் இருக்கிறோம். தமிழ்நாட்டின் மொத்த உள்நாட்டு உற்பத்தியில் தமிழ்நாடு 16% உயர்ந்து இன்றைக்கு முதலிடம் பெற்று சாதனைக்கு மேல் சாதனை படைத்து வருகிறது நம்முடைய அரசு என்பதை நான் பெருமையோடு சொல்லிக்கொள்ள விரும்புகிறேன். ஆக இந்திய பொருளாதார சங்கத்தால் 3 நாட்கள் தொடர்ந்து இந்த கருத்தரங்கில் தமிழ்நாடு 2030 $1 trillion பொருளாதாரம் என்ற இலக்கை அடைய வேண்டும் என்று தலைவர் அவர்கள் நம்முடைய முதலமைச்சர் எண்ணியிருக்கிறார். அதற்காக பல்வேறு ஆலோசனைகளையும் செயல் திட்டங்களும் இன்றைக்கு நம்முடைய இந்த மாநாடு நிச்சயமாக வழங்கியிருக்கிறது. இந்த கருத்தரங்கம் தமிழ்நாட்டின் பொருளாதார வளர்ச்சிக்கு பெரிதும் பயன்படும் என்பதில் எந்தவித சந்தேகமும் இல்லை. ஆக நாம் அனைவரும் ஒருங்கிணைந்து பணியாற்றி நம்முடைய முதலுடைய எண்ணத்தை ஈடு செய்யக்கூடிய அளவிற்கு 2030 $1 trillion பொருளாதாரத்தை தமிழகம் அந்த நிலையை கொண்டு வர வேண்டும். அதற்கு ஒன்றிணைந்து பணியாற்றி அந்த நிலையை கொண்டு வருவோம் என்பதை மட்டும் சொல்லி இந்த மாநாடை மிகச்சிறப்பாக ஏற்பாடு செய்து தந்திருக்கிற நம்முடைய வேல்ஸ் பல்கலைக்கழகத்துடைய வேந்தர் என்னுடைய அன்பு சகோதரர் ஐஸ்வரி கணேசன் அவர்களுக்கும் அவரோடு ஒருங்கிணைந்து இந்த மாநாடு வெற்றியடைய பாடுபட்டிருக்கிற அனைத்து பெரியவர்களுக்கும் என்னுடைய வாழ்த்துக்களை சொல்லி விடைபெறுகிறேன். நன்றி, வணக்கம்.
We thank our Honorable Minister, Thiru T.M. Anbarasan sir, Honorable Minister for MSME and Rural Industries, Government of Tamil Nadu, a dynamic leader committed to the grassroots empowerment. Thiru Anbarasan has revitalized the MSME sector and rural industries, enabling over 62,000 new entrepreneurs in recent years. We thanking him for giving this opportunity and being with us on this special occasion on Tamil Nadu economy. We also take this opportunity to thank Dr. M. Naganathan, a towering figure in the economic thought and public policy. Dr. Naganathan has served as a member of high-level committee on Union-State relations, former head of the Department of Economics at the University of Madras. Now, I invite Dr. G. Viswanath.
Honorable Minister for MSc and Rural Industries, Government of Tamil Nadu, Thiru Anbarasan, Dr. Naganathan, who just presided over the session on Tamil Nadu economy, Dr. Shanmugasundaram and Dr. Yasoda Shanmugasundaram, for whom we have arranged a centenary celebration lecture. The President and other office bearers of Indian Economic Association, Dr. Jyoti Murugan, former Union Minister, who is waiting for the next session, Dr. Sudarsana Nachiyappan, other distinguished professors, delegates, very good morning to you. I will take a few minutes. Today's we combined 2 sessions. One was for Dr. Shanmugasundaram centenary celebration lecture. The other was on Tamil Nadu economy. We have combined both. And our speaker today was, Dr. Mantokh Singh Ahluwalia, who addressed us through video. He was the former Deputy Chairman of the Planning Commission, Government of India. Dr. Shanmugasundaram, this year, September, is going to complete 100. In fact, my appeal to all our IEA members is, he is the senior most member of the Indian Economic Association, connected with IEA for the last 65 years. I think from 60 onwards, he is the member of the executive committee and later on president, etc. And Dr. Yashoda Shanmusundaram was also president of the association. Probably it's a unique couple in our country. To my knowledge, there is no other couple who are both vice chancellors. He was vice chancellor Manoன்மணியம் Sundaranaar University. She was vice chancellor Mother Teresa University. We are going to celebrate their centenary. Of course, we have to celebrate all over India, but we will concentrate more on in Tamil Nadu. The Tamil Nadu Economic Association will be celebrating. I request all of you to attend. We have not yet fixed the date. He is born in between Anna and Periyar. Anna's birthday is 15th September. Periyar's birthday is 17th September. He was born on 16th September. So this year he will be completing 100. We are so happy. Either he can be called a gift of Oxford to India or gift of India to Oxford. He was there for a long time and he is well versed in many things, and his book on economics in Tirukkural is a well-known book. I don't know how many of you are aware of that. And in fact, today's speaker, Aluwali, also same way. He also is a product of Oxford. And we are happy that both of them are here, and we are going to celebrate their centenary this year itself. As far as Tamil Nadu economy is concerned, you know it is number 2 state in GDP. Number 1 is Maharashtra. Number 2 is Tamil Nadu. As far as per capita income is concerned, we are in the top 2 or 3. I think only Telangana is above us, and there are 1 or 2 states. Per capita of Tamil Nadu is $5,400, whereas the Indian average is $2,900. In fact, many of the leading states, I mean leading states in the sense that the population-wise, they are bigger than many other states like Bihar, UP, etc. They should also come up. Only then India can march forward. But we are not happy with this. We want to march forward. It says we should become 1 trillion economy. At present, our GDP is 420 billion. So we will have to grow almost 2.5 times to reach 1 trillion. I don't know how it is possible, but it is possible. Because we have to get ready, the people, investment is necessary. And of course, everybody should get education. At present, in Tamil Nadu, about half of them are getting higher education. The GER in Tamil Nadu is nearing 50%, whereas the Indian average is 28%. And unless all of us get an opportunity to study and an opportunity to work, we cannot compete with the developed countries. This is possible. Only thing is we have to concentrate on them. And also see, India is a country of extremes. If you see all the cities, you think you are in America. If you go to the village, you feel you are in Africa. That is the difference we have. And it is not only that. The population, out of 145 crores, 120 crores are in the low income bracket. There are only 20 lakhs of people who are in the high income bracket, out of which about 3 million people own all the wealth almost, the billionaires. In fact, in producing billionaires, we are number 3 in the world. Next only to US and China. The number of billionaires are more in India. There were only 9 in the year 2000. In the last 24 years, we have created so many billionaires. And of course, we are trying to help the poor to come up. But still, the largest number of poor people in the world live in India, according to Niti Aayog. These are the things where the economists have to concentrate because, we have political struggle, political problem, anywhere elections, and we spend so much money on election, so much time on election. These are the things where we have to point out the people, to the government, to the officials, because many of them do not know what is happening in the country and in the society. I want the Indian Economic Association and the various state associations to take the lead in opening the eyes of the people. They say eternal vigilance is the price of liberty. That vigilance can be brought only by education, and of course we can play a major role. The economists of the country can play a major role in opening up the people for what is happening and where we should go. We are happy that the country is growing, no doubt. Now we have reached this year we have crossed Japan and occupy the fourth largest economy of the world. That's what our Niti Aayog says. We are very happy about it. But at the same time, can we compare ourselves to Japan? No doubt we have overtaken them in GDP, but in per capita, they are 12 times higher than us. Their per capita is $37,000. And they pay regularly tax, whereas we don't want to pay taxes. There are only 2% of Indians who pay income tax. In Japan, they pay 57% pay income tax. And since we are backward in education, among the working force, the salaried class is 91% in Japan. It is 24% in India. You know the Human Development Index, which takes into consideration economy, education, health, etc. Our ranking is 130 out of 190 countries. Their ranking is 26 or 27. Again, in corruption also we are growing. 10 years ago, our ranking was 85 in the Transparency International Corruption Perception Index. Now we have come to 93, 96. Last year it was 96. Japan, it is only 20. In fact, they are better than US in the Corruption Perception Index. These are the things I want you to consider, and this must reach the people, because we spend so much money on election. I don't know whether it is necessary for a poor country to spend so much money. I was also a politician, you must be knowing. I was elected to Lok Sabha in 1967, almost 60 years ago. I spent 50,000 rupees to become a member of parliament. Now 50,000 will not be enough even for a street. That's how our cost is going up. It means that you are buying votes and the people sell votes. They think that once you get elected, you are no longer answerable to the people. That's how the governments are going on. We have to see that the people also must know they should not take money even if it is offered. We must control tax evasion. We must control black money. For example, in the year 2020, we were told in the parliament that there are 72 people who have committed fraudulent activities in finance or taken money out of the country, living outside India. That was 72 people. In 21, they said it is 33. This was also in parliament. Now in 24, they say it is 30 people. I don't know what happened to the rest, but still we haven't brought anybody to India. Black money is still there outside the country and it is not coming back. Within the country also we have black money. It's not any black money is unaccounted money is called black money. And the Benami transaction, we are the maximum in the world. These are the things where we have to tell the people, and the government also should act. They give so many free things, but can you get anything free in the government office? Is there any office in India which is free from corruption? There are officers, individual officers free from corruption, individual politicians who are free from corruption, but to my knowledge, there is no office which can say this office has no corruption. These are the things where we have to open the eyes of the people, eyes of the rulers, parliamentarians, assembly members, etc. They must know the responsibility. Once they get elected, they should become common. They should not belong to the ruling party or whatever it is, and they should try to work for the economic upliftment. As I told you yesterday, allot 2 years for political problems, elections, etc. At least 3 years, let us concentrate on economic development. We have people like Shanmuga Sundaram and others who can guide the people of this country into becoming an advanced economy. All of us want to be an advanced country. It is possible if we are going to correct ourselves. And I take this opportunity to congratulate our Professor Dr. Shanmuga Sundaram, Resoda Shanmuga Sundaram, and waiting for their centenary. Thank you very much.
Sir, thank you very much, sir, for your valuable address. I now request Dr. Anil Kumar Thakur, Chief Convener, Indian Economic Association, former General Secretary, Indian Economic Association, to give his felicitations. Sir, sir, please.
According to our legacy of the Indian Economic Association, Honorable President of the Indian Economic Association, Professor A.D.N. Vajpayee ji, distinguished economist on the dais and off the dais. This moment is a very memorable, pious, and very, very thinkable for us. How can Professor Shanmuga Sundaram sir come in the association before 60, 70 years before, and he give his strength, his knowledge, and in the interest of the Indian Economic Association, how can he do? So this is very thinkable and learnable for us. When I was assumed the charge as 2003 as Secretary General, then General Secretary and Treasurer, 18 years my period, 18 President, and as per my knowledge, no President do like Professor Shanmuga Sundaram. Professor Shanmuga Sundaram organized the Silver Jubilee Conference, the Golden Jubilee Conference, and due to Shanmuga Sundaram, he gave so many inputs, so many valuable guidance by Professor Shanmuga Sundaram. Then you come, you know, and our journal came in the UGC Care List 1, A grade 1, and Scopus also, and myself as a General Secretary and Treasurer, signed by the sage. Every time when I met to the Professor Sundaram, every time he telling me, Thakur, kindly arrange, can manage with sage our journal. So with sage our journal came with Professor Shanmuga Sundaram. So many, and he gave me, he blessed me every year 5,000, 2,000 rupees. You manage all the things. So you give from his blessing every year, not guidance, the money, 5,000, 10,000 he gave me every year. 2-3 things is very important. When my period, 18,000 and 18 years and 7 years this, after my General Secretary, I do all the things. Chandramohan, my brother, is sitting here. Brahme, my brother, is sitting here. And I cooperate all the General Secretary 24/7 for maintain the legacy of this Indian Economic Association. I request to the President, last night meeting in the General Executive Committee meeting, President telling before the EC, this year the very good conference. Why and how you can give this type of the statement? In my period, Kanchipuram conference is the 3,500, and my 18 years period, the more than 2,000 people is participating in the conference. More than 75 invited a speaker. Avail the 5-star hotel. Anybody, if you objection, you raise the hand. And how can you say that this conference is the memorable? And President Sir, kindly, very, very expectation from Indian economic IA family members on you. So kindly maintain this and back on track on the legacy of the Indian Economic Association. Maintain, sir. So, no. So bogus data always given. So I am not, but the conference go ahead smoothly. I am keep mum. And due to Professor Chandramohan, my relation with the 25 years, so I keep mum. He is the local organizing secretary. And so, President Sir, too much expectation from the member side. On behalf of the member, every people are keep mum. What you sit here and go to tomorrow and that not think about what is the Indian Economic Association, how can manage the association, how can this academic program, the Montek Singh Ahwalia, you know, how can he manage the Montek Singh Ahwalia and in the middle interrupt his lecture, not full. This is very bad for the Indian Economic Association. So, sir, in these words, my best pranam every year, last 3 years, I felicitate and celebrate Professor Shanmugh Sundar centenary lecture, and in future also we felicitate every year Professor B. Shanmugh Sundaram lecture. In these words, I close my words. Jai Hind, Jai Bharat.
Thank you very much, sir, for sharing your connections with Dr. Shanmugh Sundaram, sir. And I also remember whenever we say we are celebrating Dr. Shanmugh Sundaram's 90th birthday, 100th birthday, the next moment he will say, I am there with you. So thank you very much, sir, for your kind words. The much awaited moment, the hero of this program, a scholar, and he always feels that he is a student in all the conferences. Today, we are witnessing an historic moment. Normally, we will say those who are 60 plus or 70 plus, seeing them is a blessing. Today, we have with us Professor Dr. Vedagiri Shanmugha Sundaram celebrating his 100th year. And we always, in Tamil, we will use this word. They are all called gurus. Today, Jyoti Murugan sir is here, the pro-chancellor of this institution. Most of the students who are professors are here, all students of Jyoti Murugan sir. Jyoti Murugan sir is a student of Dr. Naganathan sir, though just recently came and delivered a lecture. Naganathan sir is a student of Dr. Shanmugha Sundaram. We are having a professors, vice chancellors, and in his mind he always keeps, he is always a student of economics. If you remember closely, in all the conferences, professor will sit in the first row, have a small piece of paper and write all the lectures. And today, I'm very happy to share you, every day at this age, he reads more than 15 to 16 newspapers. And he comes with us, why Narayanan, we are not doing to economics something. Economics is somehow, it's going out of the model. People are talking about commerce. We should strengthen the economics. Just imagine, that is what professors' love and affection towards Indian Economic Association and economics in general. I'm very happy to share a brief profile of Dr. Shanmugh Sundaram, who was born in 1926. I'm just repeating, was born in 1926, was part of the World War II, and he has taken an assignment. The person who was sitting here is a part of World War II assignment. Trained at the University of Madras, London School of Economics, and University of Economic Sciences in Berlin, University of Oxford. He went to Pachayappa's College in Chennai to pursue his BCom honors. He met a professor. he said, no, you go and take economics. That professor is a student of Alfred Marshall. That made him to go to London School of Economics. Today, if professor takes the mic and the command over his language makes that he's a role model for the young teachers that how a lecturer should be prepared. He was the first vice chancellor of the Manomaniyam Sundarna University, and he was also chaired the various search committees to appoint the vice chancellors of Tamil Nadu. He was the first founder member of the State Planning Commission, Government of India, where he has reformed many fiscal, rural development and education policies. At the national level, he was the vice president of the Indian Institute of Public Administration and executive council member of Northeastern Hill University, Shillong. Internationally, he was a senior visiting member at Linacre College, Oxford, and executive president of Oxford, Cambridge, Harvard Foundation. He also served as a director of the Reserve Bank of India, as well as the director of the IDBI Bank during the year 1964-74, which brings him academia and financial governance. His publication spans agriculture development, welfare economics, higher education, economic thought, and even Tamil intellectual traditions, including works on Thiruvalluvar economics and the Great Famine of the year 1876 and 78. He has trained over 85 doctoral and research scholars, leaving behind a living legacy of mentorship. His association with the Indian Economic Association started since Jaipur Conference 1953. His association with the Indian Economic Association Conference started in 1953. He served as a secretary, treasurer, and a local organizing secretary with multiple times, chaired various sessions, including 1988 Calcutta Conference, where Dr. Amartya Sen delivered a lecture. During that time, Amartya Sen was not a Nobel laureate. So before becoming Nobel laureate, he was presenting a session. It has been chaired by Professor Dr. Vedagiri Shanmugh Sundaram. He walked along with the stalwarts like C.N. Vakil, V.K.R.V. Rao, Dr. D.R. Gadkil. Its devotion to the IEA spans over more than 60 years of continuous service, ensuring the best will be given to the members of Indian Economic Association. Today, we are very happy, and I will say in Tamil, 108 is a blessed number. 108 is an auspicious number. That auspicious number has given more importance because we are celebrating Dr. Vedagiri Shanmugh Sundaram centenary celebration lecture. Seeing this kind of guru itself a blessings. You people are here, it's the biggest fortune. This is a once in a lifetime opportunity. Once in a lifetime opportunity, along with Dr. Yashoda Shanmugh Sundaram ma'am, both are vice chancellors. In India, rarest couple where you can see both are vice chancellors, both are economists, and both are giving their life towards the Indian Economic Association. It takes pride for the Indian Economic Association to honor Professor Vedagiri Shanmugh Sundaram with a shawl and a mala. I now request Jyoti Murugan sir also please come on to the stage. We are very happy to have Sudarsana Nachiyappan sir, former Minister of Commerce and Industry, who is also a student of Professor Shanmugh Sundaram. Sir, please come on to the dais, sir. I am also very happy to share. I am also blessed because I studied in a government school where he is the president of the school. He picked me at my 12th standard in the year 2002, and I'm fortunate to say I'm also a student of Professor Dr. Shanmugh Sundaram. Sir, please. I request all the delegates to give a standing ovation to Professor Dr. Vedagiri Shanmuga Sundaram celebrating its centenary year. We are blessed to be in this auditorium to witness this wonderful occasion. A huge round of applause to Dr. VSS and Dr. YSS. Thank you very much, sir, for accepting our invitation and being with us. I also take this opportunity to thank Dr. Sri Montek Singh Aluwalia ji for delivering a wonderful lecture on this occasion of Professor Dr. Vedagiri Shanmuga Sundaram. Thank you very much. I also take this opportunity to thank the reporter of this session, Tamil Nadu Economy, Dr. Rajini, Joint Local Organizing Secretary, and the Director of MOUs, Wales University. I request the members to kindly felicitate Dr. Rajini for reporting the session. I also take this opportunity to honor Dr. Mr. Dharmaraj, Senior Research Fellow, Institute of Advanced Studies and Research, for reporting this special session on Dr. Vedagiri Shanmuga Sundaram Centenary Celebration. I request Dr. Thakur sir to honor Mr. Dharmaraj, Senior Member, Research Analyst, Institute for Advanced Studies and Research, for reporting this session. Dr. Ved. There are many restricted for this valedictory, but of course we can say today many people are thanking us that Narayanan is doing good. Narayanan is doing good because there are a lot of junior Narayanans have been back who are giving this life towards this. He is one among them, and I can say he is my shadow. Thank you, Mr. Dharmaraj, for your efforts on this. Thank you. I now request the most awaiting moment, Dr. Vedagiri Shanmuga Sundaram sir, to give his acceptance speech. Sir, please.
I am almost dumbfounded as to what to say on this occasion after having received felicitations for so many hours and continuously for so many days. With the presence of one of the very senior colleagues, Dauda and Jai, A.D. and Bajpai, and Professor, whose names I cannot continuously recall for fear of omissions and commissions. The acceptances of the felicitations is a very important disposition. I've been accustomed to lecturing for 2 continuous hours for almost 3 decades in the University of Madras. And long speeches sometimes can be entertaining, instructive, and sometimes unbearable for those who are impatient. I shall be very brief on this occasion. The Indian Economic Association is 108 years old. The American Economic Association is not much older than us. Among the associations for economics all over the world, India is said to be the second longest. The association should habitat, headquarters, branches in many parts of India. The economic development of India depends not only on the functionaries, but more so on the motivators, innovators, and inspirers of the motivators. I have a thought that in another decade, India may perhaps be not only a very, very rich country, almost the second or the third rank in the world, because the human resources of India date back to a very long period. It is said the southern part of India, the Lemuria continent, were also once linked there. My vision of these futures of India arise because the cultural economics of India, the less cultivated among these branches of economics, has a very rich depository of knowledge. At a time when southern India was linked with Australia, the genetic pool of India and that of Australia itself is the same. Apart from pottering over the past, in very recent years, India has made a very great record. And there are few countries in the world, Indian migrants have not made a mark. The vision for India should arise in our minds and possibly look forward, not only for excelling other nations, but also for cooperating with other nations, which quality marks Indian culture. Give unto others what you have with you is one of the famous sayings. So I have a feeling that the Indian Economic Association has a role relative to many other associations far greater, because one has to survive before one can serve, and survival begins upon the economic strength there. Without keeping you for a long time, I wish to thank you for the very kind words you have spoken to me. What I have done was because I was paid for it and did it because more I liked it. And your kind words, therefore, are only a recognition of what a person does as is expected to do. Something is not extra. By and large, I do not have much to speak except to thank every one of you, those in the dais and those with you, those who have known me for not a short period. 100 years, I think, is not a very short period. And I don't think I've lived for a very long time. 100 years is just a mark. I thank my parents. I thank my colleagues over a period of time. Those who acknowledge my thanks, those critical of me even more, because they were the people who corrected me. With profound thanks, which words cannot adequately express, I wish to acknowledge your goodness and kindness. Thank you very much.
A very huge round of applause for a young man, Dr. Vedagiri Shanmugasundaram, for giving his acceptance speech. We can see everyone sits here we say Dr. Adian Bajba, I'm a student. He took me to London. One time we met Chandrababu Naidu ji. He was telling that he was my examiner. So we go nook and corner of India across the world. Everyone will say, I'm here because of Dr. Shanmugh Sundaram. I too say the word, I am here because of Shanmugh Sundaram. Thank you very much, sir, for giving.
I, on behalf of the Indian Economic Association, all the members of Executive Council, register our gratitude to Honorable Professor Shanmugh Sundaram for having accepted our, felicitation, centenary felicitation, sir. Yourself and Madam Yashoda Shanmugh Sundaram, I have got decades association with both of them. Kalidasa and Raghuvansha wrote, Vagartha viv sampraktau Vagartha pratipatte Jagatah pitrau vande Parvati Paramesharau. As Parvati and Lord Shankar both are inseparable entity like word and their meaning, similarly, Yashoda Shanmugh Sundaram and Vedagiri Shanmugh Sundaram are setting Vedas. People were just connecting their couple vice chancellorship. But when he took me to All Souls College of Oxford, he told that, hey, the place when J.R. Hicks used to work, hey, the place when Ursula Hicks used to work, there is another couple of economists, Professor J.R. Hicks and Ursula Hicks in economics. There is another couple of economists, John Robinson and Mrs. John Robinson. There is another couple of economists, that Gunnar Myrdal and Alva Myrdal. So like these three couple of economists all over the world, we too have in India a singular couple economist who is Vedagiri Shanmugh Sundaram and Yashoda Shanmugh Sundaram. I was recollecting that in 1979, yesterday I quoted, when I presented my ever first paper under the auspice of MP Economic Association. And that time we had a legacy that the president of Indian Economic Association used to be the chief guest of the MP Economic Association. And this tradition is broken in the hands of my juniors, my successors, and I presented and he appreciated. And that time the stalwarts of our Madhya Pradesh, like A.C. Minocha, P.N. Malhotra, B.D. Nagar, Professor D.S. Nag, and then afterwards P.D. Hajela, they all appreciate my paper and they said, oh, here is a budding economist, we should try to promote him. So whatever I am today, it's all creation of Professor Vedagiri Shanmugh Sundaram, yours blessings. Afterwards in 2002, when I was asked to represent Indian Economic Association at the International Economic Association Conference in Lisbon, Portugal. So I spoke to him. I knew that he is a permanent member on Oxford University. He fetches DPhil degree from Oxford University. You know, in India, we are having the only one university in whole of India which provides DPhil degree. That is the University of Allahabad. And it is being also called as the Oxford of the East. He got his DPhil degree from the Oxford University itself. He said, nothing to worry. You take a flight to Lisbon via London. And I am a poor man, belonging to a village. Never ever, visited outside India, never ever had international flight. Even then, he just bugged up me. Come on, nothing to worry. I said, sir, please meet me at Heathrow Airport. Heathrow Airport, I was thinking that the airport should be like that, the Indira Gandhi airport of Delhi, like that. Heathrow airport is the busiest airport of the world, where you see at 1 minute many flights they see land and take off. You see, can you imagine a person coming to Heathrow airport just to receive a small person like me? He was there at Heathrow airport, got me cheapest, hotel, that was YMCA hotel. He went to take me to YMCA hotel at Fitzroy Square and took me so many places. Bank of England, he showed that there is a bank which has got the maximum gold in the world. Here is a bank where you see Indians had to put, had to sell gold just to save our economy in 1991. So then he took me to Oxford University and showed so many places. My international exposure, I owe a lot to you, sir. Not me, but many others in economic association. And also I would like to tell you another thing, that under this DAD fellowship, when I applied for the DAD fellowship, the West German scholarship to go outside to work, he was the expert and he selected me. But that time, the DAD fellowships were reduced to 5 to 4 and only, science, the subjects were selected, not me. I could not get selected, I was excluded. But he selected me under the DAD fellowship also. So, sir, you have been benevolent to everybody, to me, to all the persons around. And this entire family which you are saying today here, it's all our creation. We owe a lot to you, sir. We keep on blessing upon us. 108 is the number Narayana said. You have contributed a lot to economics. But the best gift to economics is Narayanan. Mr. Narayan is the best gift which we have given to Indian Economic Association. He is working a lot. A word of gratitude, thanks to Anil Thakur is not sufficient. Whatever you are doing, your work is being manifested in each face, in each member attending to the conference. If I don't say anything, it doesn't make any difference. I'm a very small man. But everybody has got all respects for you. Today's Indian Economic Association, I think, without Anil Thakur, won't stand anywhere. Yesterday in Executive Council, I told that 140 you see, special economists have been involved from the inaugural to the technical sessions. I have counted those numbers. It's a very difficult task. Yes, I do agree that Montek must not be, intervened into between. There may be some, problems. There may be some, problem with the organizers. And my unconditional apology with the Indian Economic Association as well to the Montek. When I'll meet him, I'll just express my apology to him as well. So, with these words, I thank you very much, sir. I thank all the organizers. Thank you very much. Vande Mataram. Vanakkam.
Thank you very much, sir. Yeah, it's a wonderful morning, and I thank all the dignitaries on the dais for making this Dr. Vedagari Shanmugasundaram Centenary Celebration Lecture more memorable. And it is in the Golden Book of Records on this 108th Annual Conference. I request all the dignitaries to kindly occupy the first row as we are running short of time. With the deepest apology to the chairman and all the panel members, we will immediately start the next panel discussion on Indian economy's shift from agriculture to services, positive and negative implications of transformation. I'm repeating again, we are going to the next panel discussion on Indian economy's shift from agriculture to services, positive and negative implications of transformation. With wholeheartedly, I welcome Dr. E.M. Sudarsana Nachiyappan, the former Union Government Minister for Commerce and Industry, Senior Advocate, Supreme Court of India, to kindly chair the session. With a huge round of applause for the chairperson, Dr. M. Sudarsana Nachyapanji. I request all the panelists, Sri Vijay Kumar Patnaik IAS, former Chief Secretary, Odisha, and the convener, Forum for Smart India. I request Sri Vijay Kumar Patnaik ji, former Chief Secretary, Odisha, and also the convener of the Forum for Smart Citizen to kindly occupy the dais. Sir, please. I welcome Dr. Sharaf Rajesh Kumar. Dr. Sharaf Rajesh Kumar, Adjunct Professor at University of Malaya, Malaysia. We welcome you, sir. We welcome Dr. Anjali Tandon, Associate Professor, Institute for Studies in Industrial Development, New Delhi. We wholeheartedly welcome you, ma'am. Dr. Anjali Tandon, Associate Professor, Institute for Studies in Industrial Development, New Delhi. We wholeheartedly welcome Dr. Nishikan Jha. Dr. Nishikan Jha, Vice Principal, TCSE, University of Mumbai. Dr. Nishikan Jha, please. We welcome Professor Jadi Balakumaraya. We welcome Professor Jadi Balakumaraya, Senior Professor, Department of Economics, Banaras Hindu University, Varanasi. Sir, we wholeheartedly welcome you, sir. We welcome Sri Kamal Roy, Assistant Professor, Pandit Ravi Shankar Shukla University, Raipur, Chandigarh. Dr. Raj Kamal Roy, please come on to the dais. Now I request Chairperson to kindly take over the session.
Thank you very much for all of you, because you are very patient to be here to take up this session, even though it is not according to the time, 1 hour late. But we were having the honor of celebrating centenarian who was a reputed person in the economics. And also we could find out 4 generations of economists are present in this audience. One after another, they were students of another. Mr. Shanmugha Sundaram was the PhD guide for Mr. Naganathan. Naganathan was the PhD guide for our Pro-Chancellor. Pro-Chancellor is the guide for our President Narayanan, who is coordinating this conference. Therefore, I was thinking that 4 generations are present here. Therefore, all the 4 generations will look at the issue in different way or in the same way. But when I came to the stage, I find all the youngsters are here, except myself and our former Accountant General person who is sitting next to my right side, who is coming from Chhattisgarh. Rest of the people are very young faces, young, vibrant economists. Therefore, we are happy that the world, especially India and Malaysia and other places, Southeast Asia, is in the hands of the safest young persons. We are very happy about it, sir. Today they are going to have an election also. Even though it is out of way, I want to suggest at least 40% of the office bearers should be from the young ages. And the rest of the people have to be there to guide them. The topic is very interesting topic, which is very relevant, because we are thinking that we are raising our own question that whether the agriculture is shifted, Indian economies shift from agriculture to services, positive and negative implications of transformation. I have written about 10 pages paper, but I will circulate it by way of email who are interested on that. But we will hear our youngsters, how they are thinking it. I feel whatever the issue, wherever the human society lives, they have got both positive and negative. Both will exist. We cannot expect that there will be a positive always, there will be negative always. Here is an opportunity that agriculture was in India in 1970s. It was giving value addition about 40% to the GDP. Same industry, agriculture industry, is now going down to the 20%. But I feel if we properly take up the COVID period has created a bad thing for life safety and other things, negative aspect. But in the positive aspect, we were having a chance to revisit our own growth, how we have made the agriculture abandoned and migrated to the urban area and occupied the service sector. Because service sector is very easy, there is no fixed way of working hours and other things, very easy cash flow will be there. You can spend very quickly, you can have all the luxury if you are working properly within that period. But agriculture is having a hard working time, and you cannot expect what is going to happen next day, because we are more or less compelled by the environment and weather conditions. And also pesticide management is a very important thing, because we are not having the earlier conservative system of nature to look after the pesticide management. That nature was looking after the pesticide management properly, but we have removed that and we replaced by chemicals. Then everything depends upon our own time-based management of the agriculture. Therefore, the agriculture price is also fixed by the Indian side for taking the people not to have better prices or more prices, more fluctuation. They want to control the prices in India. But in America, they got vast lands. They purchase the lakhs of acres and make it corporate agriculture. They manage it as a corporation. They fix the price. To manage the price, the federal government and also the national government of the United States of America have to subsidize to compete in the world market. World Trade Organization is facing a lot of issues on that matter, how you can subsidize pre-harvest or post-harvest, how to manage it. These are all issues going on with the WTO. Therefore, WTO becomes a dump organization now. More or less, we find that where there is a rule-making world is coming up one side. Another side is breaking the rule and becoming rich. It is not an individual who is having the black money, but the nations are also starting to break the rules already made in World Trade Organization, and they want to have their own rules according to their own nation. We can take example of America or China or any other country who want to tell themselves that they are developed when you compare with the underdeveloped countries. We are law-abiding citizens in the underdeveloped countries. We want to go by the law. Whatever is stipulated in the world organizations, we are following it. These are all things happening in the world. But now our experts who are now here, actually scheduled people are 7. Here the more or less 5 persons are here according to the list. All are experts in different fields. Therefore, we are going to be benefited by having their lecture, their preparation and materials which they are going to give the organization. That will be utilized. Even people who have not participated in this, the website, I hope the Indian Economic Association will publish it so that the world is to be awakened again. How to manage agriculture and the service rather than making it as if agriculture is shifting totally to the service. We have to take agriculture plus service. That had happened during the COVID period. The COVID period, that 3 years, if you take the data also, many IT people have gone out of the urban area because they were asked to sit in home and do the work. Continue the work, get the same salary, but only coffee charges will be less for the company because many coffees are taken away by the people for every hour. I saw in one article how much money the company has to bear for the coffee alone. Therefore, that was the reduced expenditure for the company. Rest of the thing, they can take their own wives or daughters or mothers' coffee in their home and do the work according to their own need. Any time they can work out. Therefore, they could manage the time according to their fancy. They got lakhs of rupees in their hand. Nobody can expect in a village a person individually having a lakh of rupees in their hand. But here is the person who has been benefited by the COVID. Many of the people, even my granddaughter expired during that period. Many people's lives have gone. But we have to be happy that many of the changes also happened in a natural way. Nowadays, people used to say, search for the root. Everybody wants to search for their root, from where they have come up, how they have come up. I just read one article. In Western countries, now they are lecturing to them. You make notes of whatever the advices given by your grandma or grandpa, whatever they experienced, because that is the identity of your family. They want to show the identity of the family by taking the experiences from the elderly people so that you can rectify the same mistake, you can take the same positive way in your life. Therefore, the COVID period is, according to my analysis, I feel that it is going back to the villages or making it possible to be villages and agriculture is also parallel to urban life. All branded clothes, all branded things are available in small mofussil, which is having a population of 10,000 or 5,000. Because the purchasing power has gone to the villages. The IT people have gone to the villages. Therefore, they can easily purchase the branded clothes and other things, jewelries and everything has gone to the small county places, that is villages and semi-urban villages. Therefore, the whole economy is changing. Therefore, the agriculture becomes part and parcel of the system of the governance and part and parcel of the human society. I just want to go away from this topic one way. Ukraine is one of the examples. Ukraine was feeding 30% of the food to the world. Now it is in the war. But they never left the agriculture. They are feeding the people as it is. They are earning the money like that. Other countries are also contributing the war. Everything they are getting the contribution, but they never left the agriculture. Therefore, Ukraine food bowl is full now. It is valuable now. Similarly, we have to think that India is going to be the food bowl within 20 years. People are prophesizing that there will be a scarcity, starvation, because urbanization is going up, agriculture is abandoned. Therefore, India is going to be taken up because it is having different river beds, it is having different tank reservation, reservoirs were built up thousands of years before. That was occupied by many of the people for urbanization. One small, we have got in Tamil, modern poet. It need not have the grammatical poetry. It can have a phrase, just like a phrase. I saw one of the modern poet, a person want to file a petition before the authorities that his irrigation tank was taken away. He has gone to the collectorate, but collectorate is also located in a tank. Tank was finished and collectorate was constructed there. Then he has gone to the district court to file a case against the district collector. District court is also occupied in a tank, irrigation tank. Then he has gone to the high court. That is also occupied by a bigger tank. Where to go? That is the modern poetry, they are making it like that. Therefore, irrigation facilities which are constructed very prophetically thousands of years ago, how to harvest the rainwater, how to harvest the seasonal rains, and how to preserve the river water, use it properly for having 2/3 of time for agriculture. Therefore, I am just provoking you all, youngsters, to come out with more things, formulas and plans, so that we old people can benefit by that, and the agriculture can come in front as one of the main factors for the GDP. Thank you very much.
I now call upon the first panelist, Sri Vijay Kumar Patnaik, IAS, former Chief Secretary, Odisha, and also the convener of Forum for Smart Citizen, to deliver his valuable address. Sir, please, sir.
Revered Chairperson, Dr. Nachiappan sir, Professor Vajpayee sir, Dr. Sanmukh Sundaram, and distinguished panelists and distinguished participants. I would like to divide my lecture into two parts. First, I would like to give a flavor of the historical perspective from where we started in India, because our story is different from the story of many other countries. So first, I would like to give a slide on where we started and how we moved in history towards where we are today, and what we should do in future and what is the way forward. May I have the slides, please? Okay. See, as economists, you all know where India stood during the Mughal times. In the century beginning 1600 and the century beginning 1700, 200 years, India was contributing 25% of the GDP of the world. 25%. And when the British left us in 1947, our contribution had fallen to just 4%. That is where we started. Do we have? While they are fixing the slides, let me tell you that when the British came to India after the Mughals, oh yeah, next one please, next one please, yeah. When the British came to India, it was not just a mere expansion of their empire. It was very different from the invasion of the Arabs or the invasion of the Persians. British invasion came to India on the back of an industrial revolution. It was actually the invasion of technology over what India had during the Mughal times. When industrial revolution was taking place in the West, India was satisfied, was contented with just the primary sector of the economy, The 25% that we had contributed in 1600 and 1700 consisted primarily of agriculture and handlooms. Somehow we had rested on our oars as a very prosperous nation, as a very prosperous country, and we had neglected the technological aspect of growth, as a result of which the Western countries stole a march over us in terms of technology, brought about the Industrial Revolution, and in the wake of the Industrial Revolution, they wanted very large markets, and that is how colonialism grew all over the world, and we were also the victims of that process. So, from 1900 to 1950, the growth rate of Indian economy was just 0.5%. That is where we were at the time of India's independence. And as a piece of anecdote, I would like to mention to you, ladies and gentlemen, that the very first budget of India was just 197 crores, as opposed to 50 lakh crores that we have today in today's budget. It was just 197 crores, and that is where India was when India became independent. Next slide, please. So, when we built our economy, when we built our country, from 1950, we embarked upon the principle of planned economy, and all of you know it. The reason why we adopted this model of planned economy, and I need not tell you all these details, it's because, first of all, we had seen, the world had seen, during the depression of 1930s, that it was only the planned economy of Russia which could avoid the vicissitudes of the Great Depression of 1930s. And therefore, the world had seen, and our leaders had seen, that it is the planned economy which is the best possible model available to us at that point of time. And therefore, we embarked upon the planned economy model. Even the industrialists, the famous Bombay Plan, as you all know, the industrialists of Bombay, even they had recommended that India should follow a planned economy model. And from 1950 to 1990, we followed this model. And in the process, you can have a look at this slide. From 1950-51 to 1990-91, this period of planned economy, what was the situation of the Indian economy? The contribution of agriculture in 1950 was 59%. Of industry, India had just become independent, was just 13%, and the services contributed 28%. After 40 years of planned economy, we reached the next table. You can have a look at it. In 1990, there was a modest growth in both industry and services sectors. From 13%, industry went up to 24.6%, thanks to planned economy. And the services sector also grew almost the same way, from 28% to 40.5%. And in the process, the contribution of agriculture fell from 59% to 34.9%. As we all know, 1991 was the watershed in India's economic growth, when we followed the Russian model once again and went for the globalization and liberalization. From 1991 till 24-25 is presented in the slide below that. What is remarkable is that the contribution of the services sector, which is the main topic of today's discussion in this panel, the contribution of the services sector grew up from 40.5% to 66%. And as a consequence, the contribution of the industry sector fell from 24.6% to just 16%, and manufacturing was just about 14% out of that. Agriculture From 34.9% it fell to 18%. This was also one of the consequences. Next slide, please. Next slide, please. How did it happen? How did this sudden boom in the services sector take place post